Call the meeting to order. City of Anamosa City Council, regular session Monday, February 24th, 2020, City Hall Council Chambers. 1.0 roll call.
Crump,
Here.
Smith,
Here.
Mockhart, Zumba,
Here.
Stout,
Here.
Capron.
Here.
2.0 Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Prior to moving to 3.0, we do have a full room this evening. I guess we'll look at that as it's all gonna be positive. So each agenda item, presenters will have 15 minutes. They will have freedom of movement with that, if more is needed on their presentation. After that, we will see if the public has any input on that. If you would please come to the podium, state your name and your address. Please keep in mind you only have one opportunity to provide your feedback on that topic item. I would also ask that you conduct all inquiries in a professional manner with the elected council, and they will offer the same to you. Also, I ask that you refrain from any sidebar conversations. It will be disruptive to the business that the council has before them. If it becomes excessive, I will be asking you to leave. With that, 3.0, motion to approve the minutes from the following meetings.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Alan, second by Kay. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. 4.0, public hearings. 4.1, public hearing on proposed maximum property tax dollars for fiscal year 2021. I will open the public hearing.
Hi, my name is Dennis Holland. My address is 104 Woodridge Road. I just wanted to mention and remind the council that the assessed values in town have gone up significantly in 2019. So I think the levy rate should, at a minimum, remain the same or maybe even be potentially lowered. To that end, I just randomly selected a few properties in different neighborhoods in town and came up with an average increase of around 10 to 15% depending on the neighborhood. And I have, it's easy to find that information. And I think that there's, a lot of discussion about the higher taxes in town. And I think increasing the levy rate at this time when the 18 to 19 assessments went up significantly might be a little excessive for some households. So that's all I had.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Dawn Koo. My address is 13297 212th Avenue. I do not reside in the city limits, but I do own a business within the city limits. I agree with him as far as the increase. I feel that if we continue to increase the small businesses that are here at this rate, that is going to either cause some of them to close shop, or it's going to limit what we can contribute within the community to the schools or whoever comes as far as asking for donations. I just think that what we pay right now is considerably more than what other areas in Jones County pay. I think if I remember right, we are a little bit more than even Lynn County in some aspects. So I think that it's just something that we need to consider to maybe try to keep them close to where they are at. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Dick Dearborn, 600 North William Street. Yeah, I saw the agenda item and the stuff on the city website, and the proposed tax receipts for the city are gonna be 10-point-something% increase over 2021 to 2020, is that correct, as per our?
From fiscal year 2020 to fiscal year 2021.
Right.
And that's
so
the tax dollars,
The
yeah.
tax dollar, so that's not so much a percentage of the assessed value, but, you know, it takes in the assessed value versus our levy rate equals the tax dollars brought into the city, correct? So 10-point-whatever% increase to me is just kinda like opening up a blank check and saying, yep, we can do it because we have assessed values now that allows us to do it. We're trying to look like responsible people by capping ourselves, because it's a state law now that if it's gonna go over a certain percent, you gotta have public hearings, which we're doing. And so we're gonna say we're gonna cap it at 10-point-whatever%. 10% in 1 year is huge, you know, and I don't think it's responsible for us to just say, let's just do it and we'll cap it at 10% without knowing first where's that money going. You know, as taxpayers, we should know, hey, if you're gonna take 10% more cumulatively, and it's gonna differ a little bit between industrial or commercial versus residential, understand that, but that's a lot of extra dollars coming in. That, where are you gonna spend it? Is it something that we as a community wanna do or not? And you know, I just don't see it. I think it's not responsible just to take the money and then open up the checkbook and let's, hey, now we got some money to do things that maybe we weren't able to do before. We're trying to be fiscally responsible, but that doesn't sound responsible to me. Now, yes, Dawn and others had some good points about driving business out or whatever, and we gotta be protective of that, but the residents too. I mean, we have a lot of people in town that struggle with the property taxes now. And to increase it into the area of where Lynn County may sit or whatever, we're losing whatever small advantage we had before of attracting people into town. And we have a hard time getting people, quality people, to come to town. You know, a lot of our school personnel don't live in town, and I don't blame them. I'm not saying we should make them. We gotta make it attractive for them to choose to live in town. They don't, they choose not to. Same way with the hospital. A lot of our hospital staff doesn't live in town. Those are the kind of people we need in this town. And they're not living here because they choose not to. Why? You know, one of them is the taxes and the tax base, and that trickles down to the other things. And obviously I own a lot of rental property, so I worry about the effect that it's gonna have on the people who rent and stay in town. You know, not everybody can own a home, but you know, rent, yeah, you think, yep, you can just raise your rent, cover yourself. No, we can't. You know, it's hard to keep good renters in at the prices we have now. So it's very competitive. We can't just do that. And so just raising our revenue up 10%, to me, is just something we need to keep a much tighter cap on. 10%, I don't get a 10% increase in my income a year. And I doubt any of you do either. So anyway, that's just food for thought. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. If there's no one else who would like to have some input, I'll ask motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Rich, second by Galen to close the public hearing. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion is unanimous. 5.0 proclamations, none. 6.0 old business. 6.1 resolution approving final plat for Chamber Drive Business Park.
This is a plat that we've reviewed, but it wasn't made as a resolution item, so, ask for approval of the resolution.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Rich, second by Jeff, to approve the final plat. Is there any public comment on this? All those in favor signify with aye. I'm sorry, roll call.
Capron,
Aye.
Stout,
Yes.
Zumba,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Crowd.
Yes.
6.2, approval of snow removal policy. Plan was handed out this evening upon your arrival.
Essentially just tried to take into consideration the conversation we had at the last meeting, as well as some feedback I got in speaking with the street superintendent and chief of police. Changed the language on the towards the bottom of section 3, just in terms of how the officers notify the street superintendent. I had in there that they would each have his phone number, and in reality, they contact him through dispatch, so that's, again, just a technical change. Snow emergency, from what I understood, we wanted a little bit more explanation of who's primarily responsible for making that call and how that order is handed off, so I again, all three people, the mayor, city administrator, or street superintendent, they're all authorized to declare a snow emergency, but, in terms of the primary responsibility, that falls to the street superintendent, and then from there, if they were gone, it would fall to the city administrator, and if they were gone, it'd fall to the mayor. Again, the language in there leaves the ultimate authority to the discretion of those three people, or whoever, fills those roles. I did leave the other verbiage and lowered the amount of that, I guess, general guidance, but that doesn't require anything. I added more information in terms of who's notified once that's been declared. The main TV stations, there's a process to submit that information online, so that's the primary way to do that, but any questions so far?
On number 5 on the routes, is that the order they will be cleaned?
That is
Or
not,
is it just a listing?
that is just a listing.
Does this clear up what happened at that last little snowfall we had? I mean, I took my wife to work at 4:30 in the morning, and Main Street was a glare of ice, and nobody was around.
And so was Old Dubuque Road and Sadie Street Hill.
And the county was out, Monticello had been out, the state was out. No, not a single, and they didn't go out till 7 o'clock.
So, again, under this policy, they
Yeah, but the policy wasn't in effect. Who's responsible for that?
well, I think they were following pretty close to what this reads, if not exactly, in that they rely on the officers to notify them outside of business hours. Now, in reality, Greg is pretty good about checking things out, but if they're going to go out early in the morning or in the middle of the night, to kind of have that idea of what the conditions are, this is laid out to have the police officers notify them if the street conditions get that bad.
I mean, it was terrible.
Well, I'm sorry, but we all knew it was gonna snow that night. It wasn't like it just happened all of a sudden, that the street department didn't have some idea going in before 10 o'clock that it was gonna be snowing. So to say, put the
No, I
blame-
think we all
so
knew-
to put the blame
I'm
on
not-
the
I'm not
police
putting the-
department,
I'm not putting the
I
blame on
think
them.
is wrong.
I'm not putting the blame on them. I think any snowstorm is unique and takes a lot of attention to handle. In this case, from what I understand, I wasn't out there plowing, but what I understand is the way that there wasn't that much snow. It was the ice that was the issue, and it got compact to the point where the blades were. I mean, pretty much all you could do was put down the salt and sand because the blades were only making it slicker.
Well, I think part of that was due to the fact they didn't get out early enough and all that snow got compacted, which then caused a lot of the problems.
Well, could
You
we,
know, and when you're saying it's the police department's responsibility to call them, if they're out on calls, they don't have time to make that call, so.
Yeah,
Does this,
it's not a perfect system, but unless we're gonna put somebody out all
Does this
hours of
give
the
you-
night to drive around,
does this
yeah,
give somebody first priority to take care of this, to keep on top of it? Who's the first person in line here?
Well, if it's Greg's baby and there's anticipated snow, wouldn't, I mean, he's a salaried, it's his job, wouldn't it be to
to
go out in the night and
get
check
up
it
in the-
out
or
and
get
then
up
what
at
I'm-
5 o'clock and drive
scheduling
around?
adjustments?
That's what I'm
and I know
getting at.
that he does do that, but again,
The overflow.
at some point, is he required to stay out all hours of the night, or
Well, if you look at.
do you want, I mean,
We need wording in here that says this person takes care of it, period. He's first priority. And then if he's sick or he's not there, somebody else comes in. But there's backup with other people like the police department out there, but it's his street, he should be doing that. He should have been out there checking at it at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
Well, you can check weather.com, look at the percentage of that snow and know at 4 o'clock, oh, it's only at 5%. We better be getting ready to move. Whether you get it going at 4 or 5 o'clock, but before people start getting up, going to work, packing it down.
Well, I know we like to be careful with the amount of overtime they get, but on something like this, couldn't this, instead of working 6 to 3, could they bump it up and go in early, work 4 to whatever, get off early?
Well,
I think he's normally, the street department's normally good about, avoiding the overtime if they can give time off later.
But if it's bumped up, I mean, go in 2 hours earlier, get a head start on it, and get off 2 hours earlier.
I think there should be some wording in here that resolves the problem of it not happening like it did this last time. Somehow we need to have it so the citizens know that when something like this happens, somebody's on it. Cause we're kind of depending on him, but then them and then someone else, where I think we need some way to make sure that this is being watched, almost like putting somebody out on guard duty, in a way. Is there any kind
Okay,
of
so
wording
my
we could put in
question,
there?
I think, is if, I'm perfectly fine with putting in there some expectation of overnight monitoring for the street department, street superintendent. I guess the frequency, cause again, I don't think it's fair to say that they should be out driving all night.
I'm
I
not
mean-
saying
No.
they should be.
When there's the
but-
highest probability of it happening, check it for your,
At
you know
4
what I mean?
o'clock in the morning.
Well,
Or-
especially if going into the morning, school's gonna be in session, you got people driving to school up Sadie Street.
Sure.
They need to be out before they start doing that. So they know that if it's gonna snow overnight, they need to be out at least by 5:30.
So is it enough, as Kay, I think, was saying, if there's an overnight storm, to have, the street superintendent check conditions by 4 AM and I mean, then make the call at that point if the crew needs to be out earlier?
Well, if it's an overnight storm, they probably are gonna need to be out more than just one time, and getting it going before 7 o'clock is gonna be primary, so getting out at 4:30 or 5 o'clock, they need to do that, then they may need to come back at some other point, depending on what the day is, they can't wait until the snowstorm's over.
Yeah,
If it's
I would agree, but I mean, I don't know, is there a benefit to starting earlier than 4? I guess,
I
Well,
think
I
it,
wasn't thinking
it
of
has to do
starting
with-
at 4 necessarily, but making the decision, okay, we've
Mhm.
got to get stuff going here. And
Yeah.
calling people in and getting ready to start moving, say at 4:30 or 5, so that the streets are clean before kids start going to school and parents start taking them.
And people start going to work and
Yeah.
packing the snow down, so then it turns into a slip
yeah,
condition.
Well, this was 4:30 in the morning, and it was well packed down already. So, my wife has to start work at 6, and she likes to be at work at 5. You know, that's just the way she is. So, when she won't drive in it, something's wrong. And like I said, Monticello had theirs was out, the streets were almost clear when we got over there.
Well, and truthfully, just laying at 7 AM to 4 PM as being the street department responsibility, and then after that, it's any city employee. I think it needs, that, just limiting that time is being a little ridiculous. Cause it could like, if it happened at 4:05, now you're saying the police department needs to call him?
I mean,
I don't know that I wanna limit it to just that time frame, Monday through Friday.
the storm was an interesting storm to start with because we had rain and we knew it was gonna get cold, so that means that freezes. And I knew we were gonna have ice in the street, and I don't even work with the street department. That's something that you need to take into consideration because he should probably been out there possibly dropping salt and maybe some sand, especially in the main drive, snow up on the roads.
Before it got cold.
Yeah, to make sure that they didn't freeze up like they did, because once that happened, you get snow back on top of that, and you pack it down, and you got a mess. I mean, it could have been handled differently, and we need to have wording in there that makes sure that whoever's responsible for it does it, rather than saying, well, you know, it's just, I didn't get a call.
I honestly think unless the street superintendent is sick or, you know, out of town, it should be his responsibility. I mean, the other two public works departments have 24/7 monitoring,
If we
depending on
start,
the situation, so.
if we start adding other
They
people
can
that are
have-
supposed to have responsibility, it's real easy to pass it down the line.
Well, and it can be, you know, as simple as it's his responsibility, but any other employee after hours can at least call him.
Yeah,
But it's his sole responsibility to start with, and if he's not available, then it falls to his assistant.
Yeah.
I believe that was the case with this most recent storm in Point. Greg was off on vacation during this. So that, you know, there could have been a little bit of the ball got dropped there. I'm not making any excuses for that ball being fumbled, but there's times when you don't have a clear policy that it can fall through the cracks.
it's
So,
probably a good thing that it did happen. If he was on vacation, that's fine. But it gave us the chance to look at things and decide that we really need to have some wording in here to make sure this doesn't happen again.
Yep.
Well, you know, Galen has pointed out how impressed he was by the streets of Monticello upon his arrival there. Why do we need to reinvent this wheel? Why do we take policies that have been proven? I'm not saying ours isn't, but we could maybe tweak someone else's to fit our personality and go from there.
Well, you took this from Macokota, right?
yeah.
I believe so.
I mean, again, adapting it to some local things, but
But
yeah.
Maybe we just need to be a little stronger on responsibility.
Um,
That would probably help a little bit.
I can work on that language.
Cause I mean, if you look at the school system, their transportation director's gonna be out before 7 o'clock, running the roads to see what condition they're in. the superintendent's gonna know, they're gonna have an idea before 7 o'clock, so if they can do it, we can do it.
I would agree.
Yeah, I'd like to see the verbiage changed to be the street superintendent or assistant should be responsible for monitoring the street conditions at all times. I think that'd be a good way to word it.
Again,
If it can be set up to where the police, they're responsible to begin with, but if the police department calls them, they need to come in.
the only, I mean, and with, they should be responsible, but again, there comes a point to where they cannot be out there 24/7. They don't, I mean, they're not gonna rotate like, you know, we have the police staff rotating on patrol. The other utilities have monitoring technical systems that can do that and alert them when there's an emergency. We don't have that same technology on every square foot of asphalt to notify us when it gets slick.
Well,
Now, I know there,
I don't think anybody's saying they need to be out there 24/7, but, you know, and granted, I know weathermen are only right maybe 30% of the time, if that, but when it starts snowing, you know it's snowing. It's not like, oh, all of a sudden you get a pop-up storm, you know it's coming.
right,
And so at that point in time, they should be aware and monitoring what's happening.
so I think I think it, very similar. If the street superintendent or street department has the primary responsibility to monitor road conditions, no time frame included,
Right.
then we can include the other departments as, you know, it's something they should be doing, but it's not their primary responsibility.
They could give them a heads up, but
that-
it's not gonna fall on their
Is that
shoulders.
fair?
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're not to be blamed,
No, and they shouldn't.
but that's the impression I got from when I asked you about it, that they were being blamed for not notifying him this last time, and I don't want that to happen again, because the police officers are not to be blamed for this.
I called him personally, and I heard the same thing, and that's why I say we need wording in here that doesn't let this happen again, and it doesn't let down the city again.
When I asked one of the employees, he said that the policy had been changed, and that's why they weren't out yet. And the policy hadn't been even discussed. That's what I was told.
Hmm.
Okay. Did you have a separate point before Kay asked her question, or?
No.
Okay. I'll keep moving down. Kind of to your point, Kay, the priority in terms of plowing, there isn't a priority among the snow emergency routes, but again, this section didn't change, but the first priority is the emergency services, then the hospital, and then those snow emergency routes.
Speaking of routes,
Yes.
do they do the same routes all the time? I mean, do they start on the east end of town and work their way west after they hit the major streets?
I'm not 100% sure, but based on a head nod from one of our snowplow crew, I'll say yeah.
And the reason I ask that is because it appears to me like at some point, they either need to split up and hit different sections of town or rotate it so that they're not always hitting the same sections of town, and then by the time they get to another section of town, that street's been packed down. And I think Galen at one time said they didn't even see a snowplow for 4 days. So,
So, just recalling from my memory, I think I'm just going off what I'm told. I think they try to rotate, aside from the emergency routes, they try to rotate who gets hit after that, so that, the same people aren't always last. There are some areas that aren't listed here, from what I understand, that naturally benefit by being, proximity to these routes. So, the example, if I remember correctly, was Old Dubuque Road. They don't turn around and come back into town. They actually cross the highway, and so they end up going into Chamber Drive early because of, well, not Chamber Drive, but down Caitlin and then through that neighborhood, because it's their natural loop back onto 64. So while that's not an emergency route, because it's part of them getting between those emergency routes, it normally does get hit early. That's the way it was explained to me. But aside from those situations, yeah, they should be rotating and trying to not always favor one part of town or another.
Yeah, so you may wanna put something in here about the plan is to rotate starting points or rotate routes.
Okay. I don't think anything changed in section 9. Did change section 10 in regards to the speed limit. That's what I recall the discussion was. If that does not look right to you, let me know. It's basically 15 miles per hour everywhere except the 4-lane. And really only the east third section of the 4-lane, because Scott Street still has a lower speed limit there along the library. So. Any other questions, or I'll work on those additional revisions and bring them back to you.
Good. Thank you.
Do we need a table?
Yes.
I'll make a motion to table the snow removal policy.
Second.
Is there any public discussion on this matter?
Tom Durgan, downtown property owner.
Tom, I don't think you will exceed 3 minutes. Dick leaned on the line a little hard, so let's try to stay within.
Dick. I missed the last meeting, can't I make up for that time? Can you just bring me up, obviously I'm concerned about Main Street, and I would kind of understand, I'm assuming that Main Street toward the hospital and the schools would be absolutely number one on the snow removal. That's what I would assume. Can you bring me up to date on the Main Street cleanup? Because I was gone at the last meeting and I don't know what.
The Main Street cleanup procedure as described in the policy right now is that it will be plowed to the outer edge of the street and then moved towards the end of each block. So essentially it'll take up a parking stall on each end, but it'll be off the curb.
It won't be over on the sidewalk? You know, because last time I was here, I said something about, I like to keep my sidewalks clean. You clean them, you treat them, and I'm not the only one that treats them, and then they come along and they blow snow clear through them, and we have to clean them off again, and then we have to treat them again. And I kind of wondered after this last snowfall if anything had really been changed, because there was some up on the sidewalk, not a lot, but I got a building they keep plowing snow against. And then my snow plowing town, or I'd have plowed it right back off. And I'm plowing about roughly 9 foot with that, so it's not like I'm just gonna clean 2 or 3 foot away from my building. And we're talking substantial amounts here, so I just kinda like to know how this is all gonna work. Are you gonna do a snow emergency and get it to the outside so we can clean it up so people can go to the businesses and open up their doors and not, I mean, I can't even open my truck door sometimes when it's that deep. And then you get people, I'll typically shovel a spot into the side, into the sidewalk somewhere, and Mary does it, grounds and goodies, and and other people do, but then it just come right back, and so I guess the big thing is how they're gonna do that and what time frame, or if, maybe that'll work.
Again, the idea is to get the curb cleared off and get those parking stalls open by pushing it to one
And it's
end.
gonna be money because I know last time when they had that company, whoever that was, came in, they had a bunch of skid loaders back dragging all the way down Main Street, getting everything back off, rather than, to me, it would have been simpler, like we had talked about and discussed, it's been discussed many times, bring it to the center and you go right down, you clean it. I would think that would be a lot less time and money. People are gonna be upset about it, don't matter what you do, they're gonna be upset about it, but sometimes you gotta have a little inconvenience it's gonna take up left turn lanes, I guess. But, I guess that was just kind of thing, I just kinda like to know, cause I'm kinda tired of putting salt down and cleaning the sidewalk 40 times. And I think it was Alan said, and I even pre-treated before, I think it was you said something about pre-treating, I even pre-treated all my sidewalks before the last storm. And I came in the morning, and when I finally got back into town, and there, I was cleaning off all the city stuff, so. Is there gonna be anything about that, or what, are we just gonna have to keep shoveling our sidewalks off?
I guess I'm not sure what.
Cause I'm the type, you give it, you always receiveth. You give it to me, I'm gonna give it back. I guess is what I'm saying, it's just,
I'll tell you, I'm hoping, and until we kinda get this going, there's gonna be some tweaking going on.
Yep. I completely understand that,
But I'm
There-
hoping
there's-
that if they're using the plows, they're turning the blade, so they're not pushing it back out, they're pushing it at least forward or towards the street a little bit, so they can push it on down.
And I would think if they look at,
Or if they're using an end loader, you know what that's gonna do.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
just gonna be straight down,
I
so.
think what they will probably try to do, I would think, is plow it to the side, but not plow it all the way to the curb. There's no need to now because we're pushing it down. So if they leave about a 3-foot swath next to the curb, where they've got the snow pushed, and now you got about anywhere from 3 foot to 2 foot to the curb, they can go down there with the unloader and shove it down at the end of the block and the problem's solved.
and that works because as they're pushing it, it's
So
not.
now you're
it's-
not pushing snow off the street,
Yeah.
you're just,
Yeah.
You're not damaging that brick
Yeah.
along the edge too.
Yeah,
and they can actually see the side of the
And
street.
the other part of this is, they're not supposed to go over 15 miles an hour.
and I think that's what I was understanding with Jacob, and I plowed a lot of snow, and and that can vary depending on what it is, and how soupy
Yeah.
or
Right.
dry or wet or anything, but, okay, that's all I got, thank you.
Yep.
Sue Crump, 420 North Street. This is like the third or fourth meeting that we've talked about the snow removal of the streets department. And gosh, it sure would be nice if our street superintendent showed up to one of these meetings. So we could bounce ideas, he could get up and give us his thoughts, his ideas. I've been to enough meetings where I know when water issues come up, we have our water and superintendents here. We have our librarian here, we have Parks and Rec here when their departments are being discussed. I'm just kinda curious why we never have our streets department that I'm aware of has been here to help facilitate this discussion and answer some questions that people have.
Well taken.
Is that a question?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just curious why he's not encouraged to be here to answer questions, because obviously there's a lot of questions to be had.
I agree.
Thank you.
I do have one more thing to add to this, because I'm not sure, but I think this whole thing started with snow removal on the sidewalks downtown, which we've never talked about, but we went straight to snow removal on streets, but am I right on this, Tom?
Yep, I think you are.
So someplace along the line, we gotta get back to the original intent of the original discussion of the sidewalks.
Yes.
think that, the idea, the way we're gonna be moving the snow downtown might solve that problem too. You're one of the plow drivers, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I'm pointing over your head. And I would think that that's probably something that you would probably think about doing when you're plowing them streets down there now, is staying away from the curb a little ways, so now you can see the curbs, you don't have to worry about plowing up the curbs with the plows and then pushing it down, correct?
I'm a tonner and I do parking lots. The only time I get in a big truck is when somebody's sick. And I have no idea what he's got planned.
Yeah, okay.
Well,
Well,
Al,
this,
Your-
is
your
more,
point-
this is more the sidewalk themselves.
Your point is well taken. It would be nice if you'd have been here to answer a little bit tonight because of what we're doing.
but Al, this discussion was about property owners who don't shovel their sidewalks.
Yeah.
That's what they were talking about.
Ah,
Yeah.
yeah,
It didn't have to do with the snow coming up from
Yeah.
the street.
okay. I didn't understand that part.
Is there any other public input this time? Beth, you're gonna have to refresh my memory on who made the motion and second.
Rich and Galen.
Okay. So a motion by Rich, second by Galen, to table the approval of the snow removal policy until the next meeting. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimous. Jacob, I would expect, the policy to be at least completed to another draft state for us to approve. And I also would expect, Greg to be present. If Greg is off on personal, then that Eric be present.
Okay.
6.3, amended settlement agreement with Klachi Construction regarding dispute over water treatment plant expansion project.
I believe I emailed out earlier today, if my memory serves correct, the revision that attorney provided, the sections that were revised. Basically, it just changed some of the timeline and wording. To me, it actually improves things for us because it cuts the timeline down from 90 to 60 days, so it should get things moving faster. And that was done because of the delay in them signing the original agreement. But I guess unless there's any other questions, I recommend we approve that and hopefully get this closed within 60 days.
So moved.
Second.
Public comment? We have a motion by Kay, second by Jeff, to approve the amended version of the agreement.
I've got a question before we go to a vote. It's my understanding that there's some potential additional, additional bills on this potentially, that what we had listed wasn't everything.
Okay.
Is that correct?
When you say the billing amount or other vendor, other subcontractor?
Billing amount for some of the
So
subs.
what we did our best to get the owed amounts, but again, all the subs don't have agreements with us, they have agreements with Kalachi, so we're kinda at the mercy of what we can find. Usually we relied on what the subcontractors told us. In some cases, we weren't always notified, and so then we relied on what Kalachi in those cases told us was owed. But because the way the agreement's set up, they're responsible to provide all the lien waivers, which means that the subcontractors either have to accept the amount they're gonna get paid, or if they don't, Kalachi can, at his discretion, bond them out separately and basically leave the city free from all liability. And that gives us assurance that if they don't meet some agreement in the future, the bond will end up paying that money owed to the sub. and it does delay the timeline for that sub, but it gets the liability off the city within the 60 days. It doesn't do him any benefit to do that for every sub, because again, the bond company's gonna come after him, so, it's either a lien waiver or a bond out for that particular subcontractor within the 60 days.
Okay, so
So if there's more, and they can't come to an agreement on what's owed, he may bond that out, and then they have to work it out between those two, but.
So if it's one of the subcontractors that we're paying, he's still responsible, we're not going to be turning around, and they're gonna say, well, you still owe us another 10 grand or something to that effect, and we're responsible, it's all up to him, right?
Right, so, as I understand it, he can choose which ones he's gonna pay off first. Obviously, we'll have all those lien waivers up front. There'll be some remaining that we have to get paid from our payment, in which case we'll get those lien waivers or whatever on the day of when, basically a same-day transaction. We'll provide the check, co-signed by Kalachi to the sub directly in return for the lien waiver, for those final subs. That's the way I understand it.
Okay.
Any further discussion by the council? All those in favor of the motion on the floor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimous. 7.0, new business. 7.1, resolution approving the maximum property tax dollars for fiscal year 2021.
So, I know I looked at this when we first started putting it together. I could look it up, but to the best of my memory, what I was, for the total city assessed value, it was about a 5% increase on the assessed value. The other reasons for increase, so that there's no increase, other than, which is due to the increased assessment on the first line, which is the regular general, or the operation of the civic center, because those two items are capped on the levy amount by the state. So the dollar amounts did increase based on the assessment, but the levy amount did not change. The other, that is also the same with the emergency levy as well. The other three levies, they are not capped. And so that's the employee benefits, the vast majority of that, that's the line that has the vast majority of the increase, and that's primarily due to health insurance increases. FICA and IPERS does increase due to increased wages, which again, wages are one of the big reasons why we have to, even though the values did increase, wages, to remain competitive, a lot of our departments need an increase, and we're still in negotiations with the police union, but those wages come out of that regular general. So while we're capped, to make ends meet on wages, we had to take that full amount. Other things listed in the explanation of significant increases. Again, one of those line items is the operation of the civic center, which is our community center. There's been a lot of facility maintenance costs that have been deferred on that facility just because They haven't had the money. So, again, in that respect, if we want to maintain that great facility and attract people to our community because of it, then we have to maintain it, and that takes money. We're looking at least a roof repair, if not a full roof replacement. At least $100,000, I think. I mean, we don't have a quote yet, but we've had people look at it. It's just a large building, and
When you're talking health insurance increases, are you saying dollar for dollar, the increased costs, the city's absorbing that whole one? I mean, are the employees, I know that they pay a very small portion of the
the
insurance.
employees pay 10% of the premium, and we pay 90% of the premium. So we're absorbing the majority of that increase.
Could
And
we-
and again, it's really important. Probably the most important thing is that this is a maximum dollar amount. It is not the amount that is budgeted for. It could be, but if right now we don't have our health insurance renewed yet, so we're working off of projections of 7%. If we're able to spend less because the actual renewal amount comes less, we're absolutely going to spend less. But
So I understand, I think the way I understand it then is this tax, this levy that the city is being put under is pretty much as far as how we take care of our employees here, and it's mandated by the state, and we can't get money from someplace else. It has to come from the tax income. Is that correct?
so certain departments depend on the general levy for their wages and other expenses. The police department, the parks department, the library, city hall, departments like water, wastewater, and the street department have other sources of revenue that are created for them. So water, wastewater, obviously they operate solely off of utility bills. They don't get any of this money. While there is some things from the general fund for the street department, they primarily rely on road use tax. So we can't use road use tax to help fund another department, and we can't use utility revenues to fund the police department. So
we're held to that by the state, am I
so
correct?
there are certain pools of money that we can only use in certain places.
Okay.
Well, I guess you take a step back. I mean, at this point in time, water bills have gone up a lot. We're trying to put together a police station and fire station. We're wanting to raise this levy. When we talk about trying to attract and retain existing families and residents, we want to attract new ones. I don't think this is going to help. I mean, you look at the development we have going on. I mean, there might be a point where people aren't going to buy a house here. People aren't going to put up houses here because of the tax rates. I mean, I looked around to 6 different communities. Macokota has 1366. 1,000. Monticello is 1386. Cascades 9. Lisbon's 1382. Mount Vernon's 1299, which is in Lynn County, and Solon is 1083. We are way high on that. It's going to be the point where you're going to be paying the same or more as you would be living in Lynn County. I mean, people might get to the point where, hey, I'm going to live in Lynn County. They got all these amenities, and the taxes are the same as Anamosa. Why would I live in Anamosa, pay these high taxes, and I don't have all the extra amenities that Cedar Rapids has?
We are the highest tax city in Jones County, from what I understand.
Looks like we're the highest tax for our size in eastern Iowa.
Yeah.
I mean, those are my thoughts and concerns.
Well, I mean, part of it is the hand that we're dealt, but again, if you look at the city valuation, we're very low for a city of our population, even if you exclude the prison. For example, I mean, our valuation is very similar to that of Monticello, and yet we've got 1,000 more residents before you calculate the prison. So we're trying to do more with the same. And I guess that's my thought is I think maintaining those amenities, that's, to me, that's the key of attracting people, not just tanking all of our services, to keep the taxes low.
Some concerns I've heard from residents is, I think the general taxpayer is a little more okay with their tax dollars, hard improvements, improvements to LCC, library, furnaces, air conditioners, that kind of thing. But when when their tax dollars are paying 90% of the, insurance, for example. I mean, not that it's probably a popular comment, but I'm just for example, just something to take a look at. Just
I don't know, I guess I live in this town, and I've been here since 1997, and I love this town, I really do. And it's got a lot of good things going for it, and a lot of places we can go with what we have.
I also, I'm with you, Al.
My wife looked at me the other day, and when we got our tax bill that we were gonna be paying, and she said, "Alan, we can't afford to live in this town if we retire." It's kinda true and it's kinda not. I understand what she's saying. I wanna stay here. I'm gonna be 70 this year, I'm still working. We can make it through that, but there's a lot of people in this town that are working from paycheck to paycheck. And I'm just wondering if there's something that we could do to kind of alleviate this a little bit. We may have to bite the bullet for a couple of years or something, I don't know. I'm just throwing it out. This is emotional for me. It's not, I'm not talking business right now as a member of this council. This is emotional for me. And I know there's a lot of people that are feeling the same way. I don't know, I haven't been on the council long enough. I don't understand what's going on in this city enough yet, but I'm learning. And I'm just wondering if there's something that we can't do to kind of get a handle on this just a little bit.
Well, what I'd like to see us do, I don't wanna see this happen, but I'd like to see us sit down, start setting up 5-year plans, and then maybe having a long-term 10-year. But when we're talking, yes, the community center needs a new roof. Swimming pool needs work. We need to start planning this out in stages instead of, here it is, we gotta bump everything and get it done. If we spread it out, plan for it, I think we can help maintain some semblance of uniformity and keeping things at a lower rate. But just to jump in, say, we gotta do everything at once, or, and granted, some of this is from years and years of neglect on some buildings or some places, but, we could have been setting aside money for the roof at the LCC because we knew roofs only last so long. They could have been planning for that.
I just think we need to stop kicking the can down the road.
But we
It
need
just
to
might be-
plan.
Yeah. Should we have a meeting on this and look into things, do a little digging? I mean, we're just, right now we're talking, but I don't know where to go with this.
Again, this does not lock us into spending that much. You can approve it tonight and still modify the budget before it's approved at the end of March. because of this change, this is the first year this is a required step. I don't think we have the opportunity to table this without pushing our budget timeline past the due date.
We have a due date, I know.
But we could knock that down and not go to the maximum tonight.
You could.
Yeah.
And have you calculated what a good number would have been if we, you know, if we said, okay, let's not go to the max? What's the next drop down level? Maybe 2 levels?
I did not calculate another amount. I felt this was what was required to achieve the things we discussed in the budgeting process so far. Again, the only thing that comes to my mind where we can cut this down a lot, and that's the biggest jump, is the employee benefits. I certainly hope it doesn't come back at 7%, but for budgeting purposes, I mean, that could save us a lot of money.
I just feel like I need to know more. I feel a little lost at this right now. I just feel like I need to know more. I don't know where to start by asking questions, but it's hard to make decisions without the facts in front of me, that what's really needed and what we need to do.
So the health insurance, you said that you're factoring a 7% for the benefits?
7% for health insurance. We did.
And what's that dollar amount? What's that come out to?
Fire up my computer real quick. So, the city as a whole, our benefit projection, this is including health, vision, dental, life insurance. Our life insurance is locked in, so that doesn't change at all. The dental and vision, I think we budgeted like 2 or 3% increase on. But the total benefits number was like $383,000, but that doesn't, that's not, that full amount is not there because, water and wastewater, they're funded through revenue, utility billing,
Yeah.
so. That's the difference there.
So how much of the benefits would come out of this levy?
All of them.
The 291?
The 328, that last line, all the benefits come out of there.
And that's what the dollar amount would
the best of my knowledge, yes. We can look at cutting down that percentage, and, you know, we can always look at restructuring the plan, but, I really hesitate to do that. That does not make employees happy when they get a higher deductible plan.
If I were an employee and they did that, I would probably want a raise to be able to cover it, so I mean, you're damned if you do or you're damned if you don't.
Well, and
We do
exactly, I
have-
mean, the thing is, you can't offer the raise because the raise money is capped,
Yeah.
whereas the benefits money is not capped. That's the reason the state did that, because
Yeah.
they know we don't have control over, what the health insurance market does. So that's at least my understanding of why that's not capped. But, that regular general levy is capped.
You wouldn't wanna
Yeah,
do-
have we
We've
ever
got good
looked-
employees, I mean, we really do, I've been around enough to talk to a lot of them, and we've got a lot of hardworking people here that really care about this town, and I really hate to put them in a corner too, but it's just, I don't know.
Have we ever looked at like a cafeteria plan or something else to do, pre-tax money into a plan?
I don't know that, we haven't since I've been here, no.
It's like through prime benefits, that's most employers use.
Kinda
We
set
ha-
up
we
kind of
have, we have flexible spending accounts,
That's what
so
that would
maybe
be.
that's the same thing.
kinda set it up as a pool,
So they can allocate so much funds, yeah.
money can
Yeah.
come
So,
in that way.
okay,
Yeah.
That's from their end.
Right.
right, but it's pre-tax, so
Yep.
it does give them a benefit.
Yep, we do offer the flexible spending accounts. We've talked about in years past, and I'm sure it'll come up again this year, we can try to save money through a self-insurance. So basically, we take a plan, or partial self-insurance, so we take a plan, and then the city just says we'll cover amount above this, with the idea that we're gonna pay out less than we save in premiums. I don't know until I see the plans in front of me and what the best option is, but we've discussed that in years past. It didn't make sense then, just because like it stated, you're putting some of that liability back on you and taking it away from the insurance company. So if you have a home run, if you will, a big claim, the city can be on the hook for, you're limiting yourself, but, you can be on the hook for some money, so.
Well, I think it would be prudent to start looking at options, maybe not necessarily for this year, but for the future. Waiting until the end is not a prudent thing, but looking at it early enough, dissecting the plans and discussing them, we might be able to come up with something better.
Okay.
Should we put that idea on the agenda someplace farther down the road, so we don't walk past it and forget about it? Would that be a good idea?
Well, as far as the insurance plan, we can have future discussion on that.
Yeah.
But as far as agenda item 7.1.
No, I'm not talking about that, I'm talking about what Rich is talking about, is the looking into some other plans, so maybe we can alleviate some of the pain they're feeling right now.
I would say as soon as we get done with the budgeting,
Then we
we
start.
need to start looking.
I agree.
I've already, again, like I said, I've reached out to our broker to get that 7% number. And again, he felt that was very safe. He doesn't think it's going to be that, but in a matter of, we budget less than that, we can't spend more. So it was the safe number. But I'll reach out again. We'll try to get the process going. As soon as he's got information from Blue Cross Blue Shield, we can start looking at our options. I guess if you'd like, I can, we haven't done this in the past, but I mean, we can discuss, bring some of the options here for discussion if you'd like.
I think we need to do that.
Okay.
So we sit here tonight having to make some decision with this. And I can understand we don't wanna go for the max, although we may be very limited because of the unknowns. One option would be to go to the max, and then we squeeze it through the budget, so it doesn't get to it. That is gonna mean every department under this organization has gotta get lean, clean, and mean. Because, you know, we went through the initial draft of the budget, and we told the places that they needed to possibly scale back, and we gave them room to include resources into the future budget. All those resources maybe need to be thrown out and run idle for a year. I just don't know what other options the city has at this point in time, especially because we've gotta make some decision on this tonight.
I guess my final thought is, I mean, if we're talking a 10% increase on this in a calendar year, we're trying to, we need to do something with the police station and the fire station. I mean, that's, number could go up from there. I mean, we could be talking a 20%. I mean, I have no idea what the bond would call for, but we gotta think about that too.
That is a number that is not included in this here.
Yeah, so that could be higher yet.
Just have to prioritize. Start looking at things and prioritize.
You know, in comparison to other towns, you know, it's good to take a look at where we fall and lie within a comparison there, but, you know, some of the towns that you mentioned, Jeff, have more on the industrial side than Anamosa sits with. And that's somewhat key in the overall tax factor.
And like housing though, I mean, we're way ahead of Macokota and Monticello for the new housing, so I mean, it comes and goes.
We lost Bennett's, which was a big employer, which is probably gonna hurt us in the long run too if we can't find somebody to get in there.
Rich, you were gonna make a comment?
Well, I was gonna ask, does everything have to be allocated exactly as you've got it stated? Or can we cut this and make sure that the benefits are covered and not raise, say, the property liability insurance costs and not raise the general fund? And cut the percentage of an increase?
So we can change these numbers lower. The only thing we can't do tonight is make them higher, and I don't think that's been discussed at all. Again, if we make any of these numbers lower, the only one that I would feel comfortable making lower is the benefits, because I think it's got maybe enough cushion, we can draw it back. I just don't know exactly how much. But I mean, if you again, just looking at wages again is driving this a lot. Now, if you want to keep everybody flat, yeah, you could probably cut some, but we may be looking for help a lot. And that doesn't help us at all with our police union, which, I mean, we're gonna come to some agreement on a raise. it's not gonna be flat, no matter how much we want it to be. In arbitration, we will be forced to give some sort of raise, but, so. I guess I just struggle to think of, there certainly things here and there where we can try to make it better, but nothing that's large enough for me to feel comfortable saying, hey, let's knock $50,000 off. To me, again, because of what this is set up to do is establish a maximum, we can do those fine point tuning to make sure it's, make sure that we're being fiscally responsible within the budgeting process, but.
I guess what we set it at, I should, it might be less, but the public would expect that it could go to that amount, just like when you get a bid to roof your house. It might be less, but you should expect that it could be up to the full amount, so I think we should approach it that way.
I agree.
I do too. We'll just do the best we can to make sure that everything is as tight as, like Rod said, we're just gonna have to get a little lean and mean. And be sure that we treat our employees fairly with their wages and everything else. I mean, we're kinda stuck here. It's kinda like putting the frog in the water and then turning the heat on. We've gotten here, now we gotta figure out a way to shut the water back off, cause we're starting to boil.
That's where we need to start looking at things.
I
in the
agree.
Longer term instead
So
of.
we're kinda stuck in a way of just picking up this ball and running with it, cause it's the one that's been dealt with us. I'm new here, but that's what I see, so we'll just
Yep.
do what we can.
Many in this room have heard me say several times, we are now paying for sins of the past.
Absolutely.
But I would say if we pass this, we need to take a hard look to see where we can cut and make sure we're not exceeding this point, we're getting even close to this point.
Okay.
I'd really like to see us below 14. I know that's gonna be a struggle, but
I mean, on the 1920, the 2019-20 tax year, we're at 1401, then we
I-
drop down to 1327.
Yeah,
yeah, I'd like, if we get to 14, that's where I'd like.
That's kinda what I was thinking.
yeah, I would love to be lower, but in terms of right here, here and now with the cards we've been dealt, I mean, the best case scenario is for us to try to keep the levy flat. There's just nothing realistic that I think we can get below what last year was in terms of the levy, but we can do our best to meet it.
If we can get to 14, I think that would be a start.
As a council, then we'll need to lace up our work boots.
Yeah, to say the least.
Prior to asking for any motion on this, because the motion could change with public input, this time, council give me some freedom to go ahead and engage any public comments, and then we'll come back to the motions.
Eric Wink, 499 Rosemary Lane. To what Jeff said, we just recently moved here, been gone for 30 years. We come here, you're gonna hit us with this, like you said, the police station, the fire station, probably gonna have to move back. Just can't do it. We wanted to bring our life here, we wanted to bring our business here. I don't know we could afford to stay here, and I don't know how many other people are like that, but something, I understand you're between a rock and a hard place. Please, take a long, hard look at this, cut every penny you can. I grew up here, I love this city, I wanna stay here.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
Nancy Schaefer, 803 North Division Court. Just looking ahead on your agenda to 7.3, maybe you better look at that pretty hard.
I would imagine that there's a lot of eyes focused on that one now, Nancy, but thanks.
Cindy Norton, 401 Scott Street. I really felt like Jeff was talking to me. I moved back here a little over 4 years ago. And I came tonight, I didn't even know my taxes were going up. I came here to talk about my water bill. So, I just feel like I'm kind of doomed. I mean, I'm single, I'm one of those people that goes paycheck to paycheck. But even if I say it's gonna be too much, it's not really gonna change anything, is it? I mean, I'm just stuck. I'm stuck paying the higher taxes. Can I come back up to talk about the water bill when it's time? My streets get cleaned off well, I'll be positive on that. But, but I mean, if I say anything, is it really gonna change anything? I mean, so how much are my taxes gonna go up? I mean, do you guys have a number?
I don't know, exactly, it'll depend on the value of the property.
Up to 10%
Up to,
is what is on the sheet.
up to 10%.
That's the dollar amount, that's not the, it will not be 10% on your property necessarily.
Okay.
So if you took $100,000
Because,
assessed
because
value-
not every property is valued the same way, so.
And then there's the math that you go through. You've got the assessed value, and then it's a percentage of that assessed value that's assessed on you, so.
Well, I'm making it paycheck to paycheck now, not including this incredible hike on my water bill. And now my taxes are gonna go up, which is gonna mean my house payment's gonna go up, because my taxes are included in my house payment. But I wanna see,
Excuse me?
everybody deserves
No,
raises.
Please refrain from the sidebar.
But everybody
Sorry.
deserves raises. I wanna see people get raises. But, I mean, what Jeff was saying, it sounds like we're pretty high on the tax rate for a town. And I come from Cedar Rapids, I lived there for many, many years, and they do have a lot of amenities, and it's not always the best thing to drive back and forth. But I love being close to my family, I love my house, I love my neighborhood. I just don't know if I'm gonna be able to afford it. If my water keeps going up and my taxes keep going up, I might just be doomed. I don't know. So I guess what I'm asking is, this is my first meeting I've ever been to. So I'm saying my opinion, but does it really change anything?
It matters.
It
It
matters.
matters a lot.
We try.
Thanks.
Well, because we all live here. It affects us too.
Absolutely.
As somebody who's lived here for 40 years, when I first moved here, my property taxes have quadrupled from when I first moved here. So, I will throw that in.
And I'd like to say one more thing too. I was voted in here on the council because people thought that I could make a difference, and I'm gonna be here for 4 years. I can't promise you that I'm gonna make a big difference, but I'm gonna try to make a difference. And the people on this council, I've gotten to know them quite well in a short period of time. And I think we've got one of the best councils we've had here for a long time. Everybody strikes me as someone who really wants to do something here. So we'll do what we can.
Okay, my name's Dennis Holland, 104 Woodridge Road. To her point, it seemed like we're kind of up against a deadline on this. And we're just having public comment now. That's, I think, a little what her point was. The assessed values have been out for months. And I would think you could, maybe put some notice out about some of these changes. You know, and the assessed values is a statewide thing, and quite honestly, I agree with them. You know, I think our assessed values are a little bit out of whack, and when I look at them now, I think they're probably more, you know, based on the market. But what that means is, like, for people in my neighborhood, some of the values went up 40%. So that's gonna be a big deal. And that's not gonna look well. You know, we've talked about the issue of the police station, which is desperately needed. And people are already talking about, well, the pool's gonna be another 5 years and it's gonna need to be replaced. You know, and to your point, I doubt any of that's been talked about. So I think maybe a little more foresight when we're planning would be appreciated.
Jennifer Snow, 113 South Oak Street. So I have a question about the health insurance, because you say that's kind of an unknown number. So if the plan that the city has to purchase goes up, how much of that is going to get absorbed by the employees? Are they still going to stay at the same percentage? Or is the city absorbing all the difference?
The plan right now is to keep the same percentage. I haven't heard otherwise from, you know, to look at that, but, yeah.
Because I know my husband works for the city of Cedar Rapids, and our family plan went up $120. So is their plan going to go up? You know, expense goes up. Is
Their portion would
Their
go
portion
up,
gonna go up.
but because they pay 10%, we pay 90%, the brunt of the increase will go to the city. Again, we'll also look, we're gonna look at, everything's open to be looking at. We'll be looking at other plans that maybe have a lower premium cost. But, you know, we're gonna do our best to provide our employees with a good plan, but at the lowest cost to the city, so.
Anyone else? I would encourage, if the public is sitting there wondering if they should come forward with their comments, to please do. Because I know this council would sooner address them here than to hear of it out on the streets. So this would be a time to have that discussion.
Betty Weimer, 1609 Meadow Ridge Court. I agree with everybody in here. I don't like when my bills go up. I don't like paying more for anything. I'm pretty frugal. However, I want a nice community. I want a nice hospital, a nice police station, a nice fire department, a nice school, a nice place to live and to grow old. And I know that it takes tax dollars to do that, which is unfortunate. But also at the same time, I get where everyone's coming from. So you guys are between a rock and a hard spot. I've been in your seat before. You have to make the best decision to keep the city going and be progressive and move forward. But at the same time, you have to do what's to the best interest of the public. And is it to the best interest of the public to pay just a little bit more upfront to keep things going? Where's the balance? Where's the happy medium? Jennifer, you brought up a very valid point. Is it feasible? Is it doable? Do we lose employees when we do that? You guys are doing a great job. It's not an easy seat to be in.
Thanks.
Mike Dearborn, 405 North Division. Forgive my voice, I'm sick. So, Al, in answer to your concerns, you talked about, you know, what do we do? You know, you're new, you say, and you don't understand what your options are. Well, I've heard good options here, and one is actually looking to the future. And you know, I'm not gonna beat that dead horse. We all understand that. Two, cut where you can. You just gotta cut. You're not here to make friends, not with the city employees, not with citizens. Cut where you can. I don't know how we got to this point of such desperation right here, right now, to raise taxes like you're asking to do, without any kind of warning. I mean, this, I think I understand what goes on in this city. This is the first I heard about it in the last week. How is that? How long have you guys known about it? I mean, how far along are you in your budget discussions? And are you at a point where you've got a list of what I call a cut list? Have you considered that yet? Are you at that point? Because right now, I don't have a real warm fuzzy feeling that 1 year from today, I won't be standing up here when you're gonna take the easy way out again and do the same doggone thing. You know, you did the same thing when you wanted to do the water treatment plant expansion. You hired this $25,000 consultant with a three-piece suit, came up here and gave you this big spiel about, you know, he talked for 20 minutes, you know, we can do this, this, and this, it'll pay for that. And at the end, he says, so my recommendation is we just raise the water rates. Well, now, in the last several months, we found out that plan didn't work. Am I right? Remember that guy? Okay, didn't work, so now we had to expand on that. That's what makes me think that a year from now, we're gonna be asking you guys to cool it again on the taxes. I just think that, you gotta work harder at this budget thing. I understand, I do understand how that budget stuff works and how difficult it is. But it seems to me like it's kinda oversimplified right now, just asking for a raise in taxes. Thank you.
That's well taken, thank you for that. And I think he's right in one point. But we're new here, this is a small group, and I don't have all the information yet. I'm a person that works on facts. And I am hoping that a year from now, you won't have to stand up there and say that.
I'd respond to that, Al, but it'd be illegal. Sorry. Thanks for telling us.
Well, to follow along with one of Mike's point, the 2019-2020 year versus the 2020-21, we certainly trimmed some of the budget to get lower. Now with, it's my understanding with this new formula or new guidelines by the state, it changes, how the city can allocate these taxes.
The allocation's the same. The only thing that's new this year is that this step is required. This public hearing has not been required in the past. There's only been one public hearing required, and that's when we approved the budget. So, I guess they saw a concern for providing this advance notice of what we were looking at. And again, this is not a final number. This is a maximum we can't exceed number.
And when does this have to be, it has to be done tonight, we can't do it at the next meeting? when we do the budget?
I don't think so, because this has to be approved before we can post the notice of the proposed budget. And if we missed that deadline for advertising it, then we don't have enough time to approve the budget. And this is where adding this public hearing just shrinks our timeline to get all the prior work done. Yeah, the valuations were out in January, but it's taken that time to work through and get our numbers where they are now.
And how long have you known about needing to do this? I mean,
Needing to do the public hearing,
to do this public hearing?
known since the budget workshop in November.
So potentially we could have had it last meeting or had a little time to work through.
I scheduled this out in our budget process, wanting to make sure that we could be as far along and have the best idea. I did not want to slap the highest numbers on here and try to just meet the state requirement. So again, what we're presenting here, yeah, it is the max. And like I said, the only thing I see a lot of wiggle room on is that the health insurance. We will obviously do our best to cut where we can, but the reason I waited to this point is because I wanted to have our budget process primarily done. As we'll discuss later, I mean, we want to have one more budget workshop where we, do a final review on things, and there's definitely, I'm sure there's some things we can cut. I just don't think, as of right now, as I sit today, a substantial, there's nothing that sticks out in my mind, I guess, as a big factor somewhere. There may be small amounts here and there. And I guess to clarify, some of the equipment, like that we'll be discussing later tonight, sure, we could cut the Vector truck from the budget. It doesn't impact this number on this piece of paper because it's from the utility bills. So, that, I guess that's, again, you gotta think about what money is actually coming from this pot, and, City Hall, police, library, Parks and Rec, and the majority of those departments have been running really razor thin. That's kind of what's got us to this point, is where we need the influx because they've been running with such few funds in the past. They bypass, they run their furnace as long as it can possibly live because they don't have the money to replace it. Those sorts of things. We have a lot of amenities. It was said to me when I first started here, we're a community with amenities larger than our size, and we've got a valuation that's smaller than our size. So that's very hard to balance. Nobody's gonna like it, but you're either gonna give up amenities or you're gonna give a little bit more in taxes.
Well, now, it's the unfortunate side of this. We need to make a decision, and we'll have to come through a motion.
What are the results if the motion is voted no? What happens?
Well, I mean, there could be a separate motion to approve a smaller amount tonight. If some max levy is not approved tonight, I think it will push our budget late. But I think if we had a motion and it failed, I think you could still take another vote at a different motion.
So if we lowered say the tax rate to the rate of 2019-20 of 14.01, what kind of number would we end up with? We'd end up with that number again? No.
Well, it would change
tax
a little bit because of the tax value.
Yeah, the tax valuation's different, so.
But
You're still gonna end up with the max dollars, though, that will be similar, won't they?
It should be a little higher.
No, I mean, if you're saying try to use the same tax rate from 2019, 2020.
Well, I'm just curious what
Well,
that
what it
dollar
was.
amount would be increase would be
Well,
based upon
okay.
that.
That would be, if you were using the same tax rate as 2019-2020 with this year's valuation, that would be 1.9 million, or $1,946,453.87.
$100,000.
Say it again, please, 1,000,000.
$1,946,453.87.
Thank you.
Approximately $90,000 difference.
Yeah, roughly 100 grand.
88,000.
Approximately. What percentage would that be of them, of an increase?
What percentage would that be?
Yeah, you're sitting at 10.39%.
Be about 5-ish.
Be a little, probably, be about half that, give or take.
Say 6.
Yeah, it'd be roughly half.
Yeah. And truthfully, we'd feel a lot better heading to that point than
And 10.
having a 10.39 overall effect.
$5.5%.
Dawn, go ahead.
Dawn Koo, 13297 212th Avenue. Like I said before, my only concern with the tax increase is I feel that it's gonna take away from other places that as small business owners, cause that's the way I'm looking at it, from donating to the community. I like to donate to the senior dining center, I like to donate to the schools, I like to do that, and I feel with that tax increase, that's going to take away from the money that we're able to donate to other organizations through in the community. My other thing was, and I know I've heard from other people as well, if we do a tax increase, and I wouldn't be opposed to doing it if I could see some difference in our community. What are we doing to bring businesses here? What are we doing to bring other residents here besides increasing our water bills and our taxes? I don't see that we're trying to bring any businesses here to help us, small business and residents, offset any of this. I mean, we're losing our businesses. They're not coming here, knocking on our door saying, hey, let us build there. The ones that do come here and want tax abatements or whatever, you don't give them, but then the ones that are here seem to get it all the time on different projects. And that's not right. Thank you.
I mean, it's both.
What I asked Jacob is there being some site loss that, it's coming across as the city is looking to raise your taxes. And a large portion of this is the value of your property has increased. So you're naturally going to be paying more tax. That was not at the hands of the city. We did not revalue your property. We're going off script, but
Well, I just wanna reiterate my points, is that I completely agree with that and understand that. What I wanna see is the city not at the same time increasing the levy rate along, because the property valuation thing was a statewide thing. So there's other counties and cities dealing with the same thing right now. But to see the city then bump up, you know, a few cents on per $1,000 valuation on top of, you know, the state increasing our property values, I think just optically looks bad when we're also trying to, you know, get a police station and a firehouse approved and things like that. So that's my concern. I think we could maybe move forward a little easier without also, you know, bumping up the levy rate at the same time our property taxes in some cases went up quite a bit. Now, I know it's 5% across city, but some houses were a lot more than that, and quite a few houses were a lot more than that.
And kind of to respond to the previous comment, so we obviously try to attract business, and we try to bring new amenities, but really what we're looking at here, it's mostly just maintaining what we've got, and that's the biggest challenge. It's not some exciting thing, but it's the most vital thing is that we maintain these facilities. And to be able to do that, you know, it takes money. I think the one that stands out the most is just the community center. They've got a lot of maintenance that's just been deferred because the money wasn't there. So when the valuations go up, I mean, that's where, no, we didn't do that, but the reason we want to take advantage of that is so we can take care of these facilities and we don't lose that, because once we've lost that, it's a lot more to rebuild that, but if we don't rebuild it, we're just, I mean, what does our community have to attract people anymore?
Well, I think from my aspect of this right now, for at least this budget year, I'd like to see us keep it at 14.0195. You know, like they said, we did hit, wastewater rates have hit some people. Like you said, the valuations have increased. Let's give at least one more year to absorb those, items before we jump into this. That's just I mean, that gives us another year to start looking at this, planning better than what's been done in the past. And I don't know if you guys would oppose leaving that the same, but that's my thought right now. And I guess I'll make that motion to leave it at 14.0195.
Which is 6%,
5.5.
5.55. You want to keep it 5.5.
Well, that's the overall, revenue,
Valuation increase.
yeah. But the tax levy rate would remain the same for at least one more year.
I will second that motion.
Can you add to, I didn't write it down, can you add to the motion the dollar amount? I think that's important. That, it would be what the number I read off
The
before.
1,946,453.87.
Yes.
And I'll add that to the motion then.
$1,946. Thanks, Rick. Okay, we got a motion by Rich and second by Jeff, and I will try to summarize this, bear with me. To leave the levy rate the same with a dollar amount of $1,946,483.57, which
It's
equates.
sorry.
453.87.
Dyslexia. clarify, 453.87, which equates to approximate 5.5% increase.
And we're doing the 14.
Noted that was on the evaluation side, not on the city side.
We're doing the $14.0195.
Yeah.
Correct.
That's still gonna mean the taxes will probably go up because your evaluation's going up.
Yeah.
Right, but the tax rate's not going up.
Does the council need any more discussion or clarification? Beth?
Crump,
Yes.
Smith? Yes.
Zumba,
Yes.
Stout,
Yes.
Capron,
Yes.
At this time, I appreciate the council's openness for the discussion, and I also appreciate all the public's input on this matter. Moving to 7.2, discussion of possible action to approve $15,000 in seed money for RAGBRAI planning.
Betty Weiner, 1609 Meadow Ridge Court.
Trevor Hewlett, off Buffalo Road, so not in town.
Trevor's with F&M Bank, and he's the treasurer for the RAGBRAI committee this year. So we have RAGBRAI coming to town, yay. They are paying each overnight town $15,000 to host for them. What we're asking is that the city council fronts the money, gives us seed money up front so we can get going on getting t-shirts ordered and start selling them, and start getting things that we need to put deposits down and can have the ball rolling. In which time RAGBRAI from Des Moines will then cut the city of Anamosa a check for $15,000 to pay you guys back.
So we have an overnight meeting the 5th of March, and we'll have more details then on when we get paid back, but we're planning on getting it at least a month in advance before RAGBRAI comes to town.
It was handled this way in 2012, I believe, too.
And this year they're giving more this year. They're also giving $15,000 that we can use as a charitable donation. And the committee has opted to put it towards getting the statue back to town, which will be great. Right now we have people working on the group that has the statue. It's in Peoria and they want it gone by May. So we have people from Anamosa here trying to see if they would like to store the statue in Anamosa while we're working up the money to purchase it, in which then it would be here for RAGBRAI, which would be great. I know it's been a good photo op for class reunions and all kinds of things in the past. It'd be kind of fun to see bikes in front of it, get pictures taken. So, yeah, all good stuff.
What's it gonna take to purchase that?
I don't know. It's being negotiated. I don't even want to shoot a number out there because I may not even be close.
Okay.
But I know that there's a lot of positive coming from that, hopefully. And it seems to be something a lot of people in the community are in favor of and on board with seeing any proceeds and money made off of RAGBRAI to go towards something like that within the community. So, yeah. In fact, I'm gonna share our theme. You know, you have to have something a little edgy because it's what sells. And in 2012, we did Write It Like You Stole It, and we kind of did the prison. This year, our t-shirts are going to be, our theme is size matters, and we like it big. And we're gonna have big statues with small bikes, and we have big pumpkins, and we have the big house. So we're gonna sell Anamosa on being, you know, and we're big in being positive, right? So we're gonna sell Anamosa on all our good large stuff.
Do you have a route yet coming into town?
So there's two routes.
Yeah,
So it's the longest day of rag ride. So you can either do the Century route where there's 100 miles or there's 85 miles. So the 85 miles kind of comes through on Fairview Road, and then the Century Loop will go through Stone City on to Ridge Road there. Come in and it'll go out 64.
They got a big hill to climb to get up to Ridge Road.
Yeah.
They're gonna be dead when they get here.
well, and it's a hilly route the whole way, I think.
Yeah, it's gonna be a long day. Yeah.
Yeah,
There's been a few times that some people just stayed in Stone City a long time.
Yeah.
yeah.
Either way, it's gonna mess up my life.
I'll make the motion to fund 15,000 in seed money for the reg ride planning.
I second it.
Motion by Rich to upfront the 15,000 in seed money to the Ragbri Planning Committee, second by Alan. Staying consistent, is there any public, comment on this? All those in favor of the motion on the floor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you guys very much.
7.3, purchase agreement in the amount of $366,500 for a 2020 Vector 2100i combination sewer truck.
Dan, you wanna get started?
Sure. So I just want everybody in this room to know that I do pay taxes, so I've done my due diligence in this truck. The truck we have currently is 12 years old. I've done a lot of research in other trucks, and safety's a big issue with this purchase that I'm proposing. We're gonna get right at $100,000 for the truck we currently own that's that old. So right now is a very good time to, in my opinion, get rid of it and upgrade to a safer truck. I put Freightliner to Freightliner, I think all you guys have the documents. And it was pretty much apples to apples, the only difference was the Vector Freightliner was a little heavier truck. Then we went to the Peterbilt, and the Peterbilt is already built, it's sitting in Minnesota. And they wanted additional $6,500 for the chassis of that truck. So that total come out to $366,500. And that's allowing us $104,000 trade for our truck. The reason I want this truck is it's got an extended boom on it. So the way our truck is now, we have to put aluminum tubes on the front of it with clamps. And we about had an incident last week where Jacob got his fingers into the clamp when we were putting it together. So it's just a lot safer truck. We can run it wireless. We don't have to stand right in front of the truck. There's just a lot of safety features to it. The other thing is hydro excavation capabilities. So we get around gas lines and fiber, we can dig a hole with it if we have to, for water mains or whatever we need to do. I put both these trucks side by side, and the Vector, the Peterbilt truck, it's just a heavier chassis. It's got a 15-yard debris body on it, which is 1,000 gallons smaller than the other truck. It's got stainless steel tanks. The other one has aluminum. They're both Class B CDLs. The Vector's a higher resale on anything you trade in. I looked at used stuff, and it was all higher priced than a Vacol. It's got a front camera and a rear camera for when you're in traffic, and I think you can also see left and right, so before you get out of that truck you can check traffic. It's got one touch controls in the cab where you just push one button, one control that you control the whole truck with, along with wireless capabilities.
Yeah, like I said, our truck's 12 years old, and it was a basic jet truck. I mean, it was bare bones. So safety's a huge thing with us. And I will note that I do have some younger employees that haven't been around a jet truck, and I want to make sure they're safe. That's the biggest thing driving this. You guys got any questions for me?
I don't, but in case somebody doesn't know, what do you do with the jetter?
When you call me in the middle of the night and your sewer's backing up, and it's usually the main, we go out and clean it out so you don't have sewer issues. And maintenance, we chop roots with it, cut roots, a lot of different things we can do with it. And like I said, hydro excavation, if we have to get into a water main that there's gas and fiber right there, we can dig the hole and hopefully fix Jim's water main if we have to. So it's a good tool to have, so.
What would you expect the life expectancy of this?
I'm hoping I get another 10, 12 years out of this truck,
Just
if not
10 to
longer.
12?
If not longer.
I was hoping 15 to 20.
Everybody's wanting our truck right now because we did take very good care of it.
It has 10-year warranty, right?
Yeah.
And
We
what-
talked about putting $25,000 down in this current budget, and then the balance will be due the 15th, I think, is it July?
It'd be due in July, that's all I remember.
And there's, from what I understand, when I talked to you last about this, there's unlimited training on
Yes,
this?
we get new employees that need training, we can send them to the factory, and they'll do factory training with our employees,
So 10 years from now, we get an employee in here that needs training.
Yep.
They'll come down and training.
or we'll send them out there.
Mechanical training also?
Yep. And we do a yearly, believe it or not, I sat and watched YouTube videos on this truck for about an hour and a half last night. They actually do an upgrade every year on their maintenance and also training on their trucks. If new stuff comes out, they'll train you on it.
Where's this one built?
Illinois.
So where would you have to take it to get repaired?
Ankeny, they have a shop in Ankeny, and then they have a service truck too if they have to come out here.
Is it Ankeny or Johnston?
I think it's Ankeny. I can check though.
Where the old one
Not
was
much
taken?
difference.
It's a different place.
Okay. The old one was taken to Johnston.
Yeah, and another reason I want this truck is when we are out root cutting with the camera, we can actually watch what we're doing. So I can tell whoever's operating the camera, okay, slow the truck down, stay right there and cut the roots and just be more efficient.
So with that, maybe we don't get, the jetter head caught in a bin.
Yeah, that happens, but unfortunately,
But we reduce that possibility.
yeah,
Okay.
so.
Dan, with the current truck, I guess across a 12-year span, what is the average hours yearly that are?
We
put on
jetted
the
half the town this year, Rod, so to put that in a timeline for you, I'm gonna say 2.5 months of continuous use running that truck.
So we would be talking 40-hour work week times 10 months?
Honestly, I can't put a number on that for you. We've had a lot of variables at the wastewater plant, as you know, with people and stuff going on, but just to be effective and safe, I think this is a good truck.
From what you've described, you've got more uses, potential uses for this truck than the old truck.
Absolutely.
That's right.
And we can do it safer.
That boom's hydraulic, so when you get over one of those manholes, you don't have to manhandle it over there and
No, you actually just engage the boom and it lowers right down to the manhole, so we don't have to put tubes together.
and that keeps somebody from falling in there.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So. I do believe you guys got pictures on this truck.
Yes,
It's sitting
we
up
do.
there, but it's a clean truck. It's last year's pricing on this truck, so I beat them up pretty good on that truck to get down as low as we did. So.
And the funds do come from the wastewater
Utilities.
utilities, not
Exactly.
from the general fund.
Right.
Move to approve.
I'll second it.
We have a motion by Kay and second by Rich, to purchase, this new Vector 2100i combination sewer truck. I would like to hear public input on this if they have any. With that, motion on the floor. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried unanimously. 7.4, discussion of possible action on changes to utility billing policies.
So this should be hopefully a little bit more positive. The attempt here is to make things better for our utility customers in terms of the procedures. What I'm handing out is just the current code regarding the utility billing. I apologize, I wanted to get this out to you earlier, but just was crammed for time and but wanted to at least have some discussion tonight. And if it, what I'm handing out now is just a short page on, I guess, the discussion points I want to have. So starting with that discussion page, I want to run through the current process that we have for billing. And hopefully I've got it right, Beth. If you notice anything, just please point it out. But once we send out the bills, they're due within 20 days. On that 21st day, we send out a reminder notice to anyone who's not paid to that point, and a 5% delinquency fee is automatically tacked on to their bill amount. They then have 10 additional days to pay, and if they do not do that, they are door posted, and a $25 fee is charged for that door posting. If they don't pay within 24 hours after the door posting, they are scheduled to be shut off. Once they're shut off, if they want to get turned back on, not only do they have to pay everything that they had owed, all those fees plus the original bill, but then they have to pay the $30 reconnect fee. Part of my feeling is this is happening too frequently, so we're putting some people, we have a lot of people who are repeatedly put in this situation. It could be for lots of reasons, you know, but I feel that in doing this process, we also put our staff through maybe more work than they need to, in terms of the more door posting they have to do or the more shut-offs they have to do. So my thought is to just try to give a little bit more leniency in terms of the timeline. Rather than the 20 days, the 30 days for the initial payment. So 10 extra days. If not paid within the 30, it would be a 5% fee, similar to what we do at 20 days. Then you'd have another 15 days to pay, and if not, it would be a 10% fee added on. So all in all, at that point, you'd be 15% higher for being that late. It wouldn't be until the next following 15 days, or a total of 60 days after the original billing, that you would get your door posted and the $25 fee applied. And then still the service would be shut off 24 hours after the door posting. But it really stretches that out basically from 1 month to 2. And while, it could initially delay some, the revenue in the first month once we get this cycle going, I think once we get on that cycle, we should be collecting. Our cash flow should be relatively the same. It doesn't benefit anybody to consistently wait the 60 days because they're paying that 15% more. Now, that's their choice. They could do that, but I don't think it's a logical choice.
Well, I've been asking for over a year to have this discussion, and I think it's a good step, because I've talked to Jacob several times about wanting to have this. We need to make this more of a friendly aspect, plus the fact that I think hopefully it will reduce the amount of time that our staff has to go out and post on the doors, and they can take care of their other activities they need to do. Because I think these guys, I heard one day they were doing 100 postings, is that right?
Yeah.
Which, if we can cut that to even 20, that frees up their time significantly. I know I've read some other towns' policies, and one town, if you are delinquent for one time, they waive that first time of any extra fees. So, you know, if you were delinquent, you wouldn't receive the 5% for one time, but the second time it would go into effect. I kinda like that, but I also know it'd be kinda hard to track all the time. I also think, though, that one of the things that needs to be part of the policy is the fact that people have the right to come to council to have a discussion if they end up with, say, a $600 water bill that they've gone through the process, had plumbers come in, can't find any reason for it, and it potentially the meter was out of sync.
Sure.
So I do think we need to have kind of an appeal process in place.
I believe that appeal process already exists.
Well, I think it may, but I've also heard of so many people going in prior complaining and told they can't appeal.
Okay.
So we need to make sure that that is stated and clearly advised to people that they can appeal if they want to. I think it said something about, yeah, you can do it if you put it in writing and something within so many days, but if nobody knows that process is in there, it's really a
Yeah, we can amend that language in 92.04, maybe to make a little bit more sense, but I think that,
Could something be put on their water bill that would mention that if you don't agree with the water bill, you could have the ability to...
You know, those water bills are so limited in the way they're set up. You know what, one of the things I would like to see, to get something out there like that, and I've mentioned this before, is I'd like to see the city come up with a annual or semi-annual newsletter where we state, you know, here's some of the things, especially going into wintertime. Shovel your snow within 48 hours or whatever it is, and do this. So we can remind them periodically throughout the year some of the things we have.
Okay.
But I do think this is kind of a step in the right direction.
I agree.
We may need to fine tune it a little bit, but I like the extension out of when the penalty fees kick in.
And we can come back to those points, and if there is other things that I know we've talked about, if I had forgotten something, please let me know, but, the other big point, that we've run into multiple situations recently, I'm not sure what has changed, or if we just got lucky and hit the jackpot, but we've had situations where the account changing hands has been an issue, either between two property owners, sale of the property, or between a landlord and a tenant. So, as it reads now, we can't switch an account into somebody's name unless they specifically request it. Which puts us in a situation where if we have a tenant that's moving out and they say they're moving out, now they may still be responsible for rent, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're using the water or that they're in the facility. But if the landlord does not provide us access to put their name on the account, it remains in that person's name until somebody else moves in and authorizes their name. If they're out of the facility and a water leak occurs, that through no fault of their own, they're now on the hook for this huge water bill. And I'm talking a scenario. But to me, we need to have the authority to switch that back into the landlord's name automatically. And we can we can notify the landlord right away that we've been notified, your tenant's moving out on X date, that's what they've told us, and it's going to switch into your account. If you want it turned off so that you're not charged, we need access within 24 hours or some very finite limit so that there's no extra usage occurring. I don't know, that's...
Could there be some sort of form done that hypothetically both parties sign, the tenant and the landlord, say the day you move out, turn over your key, they meet up, here's your key, and then the landlord is signing off, and then that's kind of the break point that would authorize.
I thought about doing that, or like asking for a copy of like their lease so that we could use the same date as the lease. What I later thought on was there are situations where someone may vacate before the end of their lease. Say they got another apartment and they still have time left. In my mind, again, in a perfect scenario, the water's not going to be running, so they wouldn't owe anything additional, and it's not a big deal. But in the case where there is a leak and they weren't in there, it wasn't their fault, why should that tenant who moved out, even if they still got a lease for the property, be responsible for that?
Well, if the water is in the tenant's name, they paid a deposit.
Yeah.
So until that deposit is returned to them, isn't their name still on that water bill?
Until we get a new name on it, I don't know. I don't think we have to have the money to them before we take it off, but we do need another name on the account. There's no ability for us to put it as vacant.
Until that point in time, when you're ready to cut a check, it's still in their name until you get that other entity to sign off and say, put it in my name.
My understanding is, Beth, correct me if I'm wrong, that is generated when you switch it over, that it calculates the amount left. And
We usually do consumer deposit refunds once a month. So she'll calculate it based on their move-out date.
Right, but somebody calls and says, I'm moving out.
Right.
And then at that point in time, do we not call the landlord or the property owner and say, we've been notified?
we do, but if the landlord says, I don't want it put in my name, then we're stuck leaving it in their name whether they're there or not, because we have to have a name on the account, and under the ordinance, they have to request that service.
So if nobody pays the bill we put a tax lien on it? We put a lien on it?
What we first do is we go through, is it the tax set aside?
Yeah, income offset.
Income offset, yeah. And then we can put, we do have, can put a lien on the property as well, but, in a, I don't know how, I'm not even sure how we handle that in a tenant situation.
Right now, the income offset goes to whoever's name the water's in. If it's something else, like say the curb stop was broken and it had to be repaired, then it gets assessed to the property in the same manner as property taxes.
So if I'm a property owner and Jeff's living in my apartment, he decides to move out, he calls you, says he's moving out, you call me and I say I don't want it in my name, it just sits there in limbo?
Yeah.
Oh. Mike, would you like to say something?
Yeah, I would.
Come on up. Wait. Oh, Dick? You're behind me. You gotta sit in front of me.
Wait your turn.
We're going age.
Hi, Dearborn 405 North Division. I'm just gonna ask you, what's changed from what's going on right now? Cause what is going on right now is if the tenant moves out, whether it's in the middle of their lease or whatever, it doesn't matter. They call and want to, say, I'm not living there anymore, they want to disconnect. Linda calls me, and trust me, I get this all the time. Me and Linda are best buds. And she'll say, well, they're moving out, do you want to put it in your name? I says, nope, disconnect it. What's wrong with that? What's different? What are we talking about here? Is that not policy? Have we not been following policy for like 10 years now? Is that not right? Cause I am not gonna just, automatically, there's a reason why electric and gas do not allow what you're proposing here. To automatically, have a policy that, okay, it's going in Dearborn's name as soon as this guy leaves.
Well, what I'm discussing is it'll either be shut off, and if we don't have access to get it shut off, then it would go into your name.
Okay, that's not what I was listening to. Maybe I just misunderstood.
So that's,
what
so
we've been doing,
I think it's basically what you described.
same as what we've been doing. Is that-
Right. I think
okay.
maybe the only difference, again, I don't think we have that written in our ordinance. Maybe it's what has happened in the past, but, I guess the only difference in my mind is specifying a time period so we have quick access to the facility to make sure that,
Right.
we don't want it a week
And
later.
it's always within a day with me. I mean, she
So,
calls,
yep.
makes an appointment, it's a done deal. I say, I almost, unless we're gonna go in there and do our thing, which is clean up, yes, we'll keep it in our name and she'll do the work. I don't have a problem with that whatsoever. So you're just basically agreeing with that, but you want it in writing now. It's not been an actual policy? She just been doing me a favor on this thing?
Yes. Not everybody does that. That's the problem. Is that
In
we
what,
have,
what do you mean?
we
They
have
don't,
landlords that we've had, the instance, so let's say they go in and clean up. Well, while they're cleaning up, something happens and water gets left on. Well, it's still in the tenant's name. They're not making arrangements with Linda to shut the water off.
right, and that's wrong.
And it's not getting shut off, so
Right.
that's why we need it in writing. It's not
Okay.
necessarily
It's not in
reflected
writing
of
now.
what you do, so yeah.
Okay, okay. Well, he might disagree, but that's all I got.
Sit down. Just for Dick Dearborn, 600 North Williams, and I don't know which age you were referring to.
Well, he's a little older than
That's
you.
right, I just wanted that on the
Nobody
public
would
record.
Even though you have less hair.
Right. Anyway, no, I agree with that, and I agree, our tenants, that's how it progresses too. Linda calls, we make the appointment, and everything runs smoothly. So I have no objection to that at all, and to put it in writing, that's great, not a problem. Well, one thing is you're considering your billing options, as I understand this to be, I think we should have a conversation on being friendly to the customer and saying we can accept credit cards over the phone or something like that, because that might help limit the number of postings and disconnects and stuff, because many people just can't make it here, you know, in the office hours to make the payment. And that can be a problem. Yeah, you're gonna have a little expense or whatever, but, you know, balance that from what we're paying to have them posted and that kind of stuff. But that's customer friendly, allowing that. The other thing is, since we're talking about that, is when they're making their deposit and signing up, and I'm speaking in terms of my tenants coming in, they have to go to the city hall to sign a bunch of papers and pay in person, whereas a lot of them, you know, again, not a lot of them, but some of them, you know, can't make it in a timely fashion, and it just slows down everything. So that's to improve the process, which we're hoping to do, let's be a little more customer friendly in that way.
Well, we can,
We can't take credit cards over the phone.
no, but over the internet.
You can do it through your bill payer, through your bank. We don't have an online portal for taking payments at this time.
Is that something we can look into
But
as a city?
They could mail the check for the deposit with the paperwork. I mean, we can mail the paperwork to them.
That'd be a step in the right direction.
So,
Cause we did,
we
did let up on that.
we are working to get the online as an option. Our credit card processor can do that, and it's set up on their end. The holdup has been on the new website. What I may look into is just trying to get it on the existing website to stop that delay any longer, but
That'd be
those
good.
were supposed to go in sync and have not, so.
Cause I thought we had that website last year. I thought we were told that was gonna happen, and it didn't, evidently. Okay. Sorry about that, Dick.
Oh, apology accepted.
It'll get done.
Cindy Norton, 401 North Scott. So, utility billing policies doesn't have anything to do with the water bill going up, how I'm taking it. It's already a done deal. There's nothing that can be done. I guess going back to what Mike said, it's kinda like the taxes. I mean, it's just thrown out there, and then here we are. And the water bill, I didn't know anything about that it was going to go up until I went from my November bill, I went from 67.15 to 84.09 when the increase happened. And I tried to read the article in the paper, but it was so confusing, and I talked to Jacob on the phone, and I don't know, like, I don't feel like as a citizen of Anamosa, I had a whole lot of input on this, but yet I still receive the bills and have to pay them.
Well, I know we did that in June, July.
But did you have the information out there, Rich, as to that you were gonna have a big meeting that was going to affect everybody
Well,
in
we
the
had-
city with their water bills?
We had
We started
multiple
discussing,
discussions.
fall of 2018 and had several meetings, and then it wasn't approved till the spring of 2019.
But what's the public like, where does it say that? Like, I've been noticing town hall meetings on the fire department sign. I mean, can we have a big sign out there like that, water bill going up, attend meeting or something? I mean.
I don't know that we
flashing-
publicized it
flashing
that way,
light.
but we did have a lot of discussion about it over at least a 6-month.
But I didn't know it was
8-month
happening, so it
Well-
didn't really matter to me if I don't know it's happening.
Yeah.
Like, how do I know it's happening? That is my question.
Well, yeah.
So, we posted on the agenda, we
I don't
try to
know.
post it online,
You said that to me on the phone, you tried to, so that doesn't,
It
that's
gets-
that's not definitive to me that you tried to, so that doesn't really help me
well,
out.
it gets posted, when we complete the agenda packet, it gets posted to the website. The try-to is the social media. I manage the city's Facebook account, so I always try to post it either the morning of the meeting or over the weekend. I say try because it's possible there would be a time where I don't get that done, but it is always posted to the website itself.
So if I hit like on Facebook, it's going to say some of the meeting agenda?
It should, yes.
The entire meeting agenda or some of
It
it?
would be the entire agenda.
Okay, so when is the water bill, and I'm going off here, but when is the water bill, is it ever gonna go down again? Is there ever gonna be more meetings that, cause this is really, I mean, when I lived in or in Cedar Rapids, I paid everything, water, sewer, I mean, everything, every other month, and it was like $110, which what makes it $55 a month for everything. And now I'm paying $85 for 1 month just water and sewer.
Well,
So, I don't know.
You're not the first one I've heard that about, and
Yeah.
I think there's a schedule that we have that over a period of time, the rates are dropping.
But then something else goes up, is what Jacob
So the base,
explained
the
to
base
me.
rates are dropping, the volumetric rate or the usage rate is going up. So basically, it's,
So you said actually it's gonna be more.
you use,
No.
it depends
No,
on,
not
it depends on how much you use. If you use a smaller quantity, your bill could go down over time. The more you use, the more it's gonna increase.
Which isn't fair for a family of 4 versus just me. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not really fair. If I'm gonna stand here and not just advocate for myself, but.
And I understand where you're coming from. The difficulty is we can't bill
Which I
someone
think
based
brings
on their
back-
family size.
But I
There's
think
just
that
no
brings
way to-
back, are we going to get new people moving in? If the family of 4 has to pay more, and, I don't know.
Well,
At the end of the day, they're paying for what they use, and, I mean, I know there's
But you
more
said it
people.
goes up after you use so much, you pay more after you use so much, so you're paying more per gallon or whatever.
Yeah, still, if you look at it, if you break out an average, you include the base rate with the volumetric. Even the people towards the top are paying, you average that out, paying the same per cubic foot as the people towards the bottom. It's actually leveling that playing field, whereas the previous system just had the base rate and then a flat price per cubic foot. What that did was give a huge incentive for those people to use the top, because all the money was really in that base rate. You were paying a bunch of whether you used it or not. So this is just trying to make it more fair for those at the bottom to not pay for those using the most.
But I was paying the base rate, but now I'm paying more for the new system than I was just, you're saying I was paying more for a base rate, but now I'm paying more. But,
It puts more control into the consumer's hand. Before you had to pay that base rate, and you didn't get any choice about it whatsoever. You paid it every month. Now obviously you had the volumetric on top. We're trying to lower that base rate, the part that you don't control, as low as
but you
possible.
added $15.
No,
I'm
No,
paying-
that's no. That
decreased.
that is a.
But I
so
have an extra $15 on my bill.
that is the water-based charge, which used to be included in the line item for just water billing. It is broken out now into a separate line. It's lower. The water base used to be 1987, is now 15, but it's broken out into a separate line rather than included with the volumetric. So it's not an increase of $15. The sewer used to be $24 per month and is now 18. So both of those base rates drop. That's the part you can't control. Everybody pays that amount. The part you can control is how much you use, and that has gone up. But the idea is, I know everybody has to use some amount of water, but we do have a control on how much we use, and was the idea behind the structure.
So if I like Facebook, your website then, or your Facebook site, then I can start seeing what's going to happen here.
If you go on the
Well, you
website
see
too,
the
it's
agenda.
posted usually the weekend before the
Mhm.
Friday.
It is
It is
posted on the
posted
website, too.
earlier on the website. It's posted when we actually get it published. Whereas I wait for the social media because I want it to be relevant when people are.
Yeah, and if you go to the website, most of the packets, in addition to the agenda, there's agenda
Okay.
plus the packet. Whereas
Okay.
Facebook usually just the agenda. So.
Okay, but the water bill's a done deal. That's not ever gonna go down.
yeah, we had lengthy discussions just to get it down, from what the original proposed
Yeah.
water rates were.
Really?
But maybe the thing that we ought to do on, just for Cindy or some others, if we can go back and look at their usage, say from July through now, has their usage changed anything, and if it hasn't changed, let's take a look at the calculations, make sure they're accurate.
Is there a reason Anamosa is so high with their water bills?
But see, mine went down.
Oh, yours went down?
Yeah.
Some
Now,
people
not,
have
not
seen
very
decrease.
much,
Oh,
like less
okay.
than $5
Yeah.
probably. But you can check the math to make sure the calculations are correct. Check
Okay.
for a stool
Okay.
that's just has water running through all the time.
See if your usage has gone up.
Yeah.
That's why, if we can take a look at going back 6, 8 months, take a look at the usage, bring it forward, see where we're at today, maybe we might be able to come up with some answers for you.
Yeah.
Okay, and then one last thing, and I don't wanna be rude, but I am gonna leave. But I'm not leaving for any other reason, I just need to leave. I don't wanna look rude. But, I was just wondering, so we had like the deadline on that tax thing tonight. Is that a common thing, where all of a sudden you bring something up, tonight's the night, it has to be voted on? Or is there like, oh, you know, the meeting prior to bring something up, such as a tax increase or a water increase, to have time to talk about it, so it doesn't have to be voted on?
You
And
would-
I think you guys have all
you
been
would
really receptive, I
prefer-
think it's been wonderful.
You would prefer that it doesn't go the way it did tonight?
We would prefer to have a little bit more lead
Yeah.
time than here's the drop dead time.
Right, right,
I'm not saying that's typical, but that is our preference.
okay. Well, thank you all very much, and see you.
See you, Cindy.
Thank you.
Nancy Schaefer, 803 North Division Court. First off, on the way the water bill is formatted, to me, the very top line says past due. To me, that means I haven't paid something.
I-
Can it,
Previous balance.
previous
Down at the bottom.
balance is the correct way that should be done.
I've thought that for a long time.
Yeah. It just messes with your head to think that.
Well, and I
It's
can't
not good accounting.
Well, it's bad wording, but
Right.
I unfortunately don't know if our accounting system, water billing system allows for changes in that kind of a format.
But PREV is the same amount as PAST, so,
Well, I'm just don't know if they've got it hard coded in, or if it's a free form that they can change.
well, I think,
So,
I,
Beth is gonna look
formatting on
into it.
billings can be changed,
Well,
also-
we're running with an old system.
Also, I wonder about just allowing, since you're changing how you're doing things and the time allotted for things. I really don't think 24 hours is a fair amount. I think you should change that to 48 hours on that final posting. For one thing, people's, work hours. The other thing is, most people go in their house by hitting their garage door opener and driving in their garage, and they're not seeing what's posted on that front door that they never, ever enter. So I think a lot of times, things are being posted on doors that people don't ever use. So, you know, I know you gotta go with what you think is the normal, but I think maybe 48 hours is a fair thing to do to somebody. Also, I think that people don't realize that zero usage does not mean you are not going to get a bill. It's like, I didn't use any water, I don't know why I'm getting a bill. Zero usage does not mean you're not gonna get a bill, people. The other thing is, they need to be looking at their bill and seeing what the usage is, not just looking at what the dollar amount is. And they need to be looking at the billing days, whether it's 29 days, 30 days, 31 days, because that does vary sometimes. It makes a difference on your bill. And it costs to have clean water. You gotta clean it going in and you gotta clean it going out. And people need to realize that.
And be thankful they have clean water.
That's right. And moving out of town and having your own septic and your own private well is not cheap. It's not cheap. And these people are fooling themselves and their friends that telling them that move out in the country, it's so much cheaper. They're wrong. So, and a lot of those people on those wells are not having safe drinking water, and they do not even
They
realize
don't even know it, yeah.
When we've, post stores, what color is the paper we use?
Gray?
Gray? Should we be using it
Bright
like
orange.
orange or something?
Something fluorescent?
What?
That's an issue that it was a privacy issue that we couldn't do that. We used to have fluorescent.
Oh, is that right?
And it was a privacy issue that was taken away.
Well, I'm just going to Nancy's, you know, they drive in the door. If it's gray, it's gonna blend in with most people's front door.
I agree.
But
Yeah, if you have another color, it would stand out and people can see it.
I guess I would think it would make sense to use a bright color. Obviously,
Lime
some
green.
people don't like their neighbors knowing they got the doorpost, but at the same time, it does no good if they don't get, you know, if they don't see it, it does no
What
good.
if it's in like an
Like the neighbors
envelope?
don't know already anyway.
Well, if you don't like it posted, make
We
sure
live
it
in
doesn't have
Anamosa,
to.
come on.
Tom Durgan, downtown property owner. That was a good explanation, because when they first changed the water bill, I included, didn't understand. And there was, I think you touched on that at another meeting one other time about trying to explain what the process was. And I think that's a lot of it, cause people don't understand what you're saying. And like Nancy said, just because there's zero usage, there's that minimum, so.
Mhm.
I think explaining it to people where they can understand it's huge. That's, like I said, that's the best explanation I've heard of this the entire time. Kind of just real quick, something what Rich said, and it was my understanding that there was something in place for the, a one-time, I don't remember what you called it, usage, high usage. And that's what I was told, and that came up when we were gutting the, old Nickelodeon building. We spent 5 days watering down all the debris to keep the dust down. So we went from zero usage to, I don't know what the bill was, but she gets a call in California we use a lot of water and they wanna get plumbers in there. So I went up and I talked to Lynn to explain to her. It wasn't Lynn, I don't remember who it was, but that's what somebody was telling me, that you can, you know, like if you have a stuck toilet or something, that was my understanding. So is that right, true, or?
That is still true. There's it's a
One-time.
lifetime type deal.
Yes,
So
yes,
it
that's
follows
why-
you to different properties. It's per person.
Per person or not per property, or just once per property?
Follows the person is what I understand.
Okay,
But it only alleviates the water portion. You'd
Yes.
still be responsible for the sewer. So, and there's some other, it requires that we have proof that the leak was, in most cases, it's a leak, not somebody doing construction.
yeah,
But
and that's.
we
what- because
we
the
require
building-
proof that the leak is repaired.
Yeah, and
So-
that's what she said, because like I said, that building is set empty with no water usage, and I don't know how much we use, but we were watered for about 12 hours a day for 5 days. So it was a lot of water to keep the dust down, but is the disconnects, is it higher in the winter than in the summer?
I couldn't answer that.
I just kinda wondered, because people tend to have more problems paying the bills, and if there was, you know, you were talking about maybe giving them a break, or somebody was, maybe during the winter season and not the rest of the year.
Well, I think at one of the meetings, we had discussed, or I brought up that potentially we could maybe use some LMI money for some people who are in that low to moderate income range. Jacob was gonna look into if we could do that to help them out, because, you know, their heating bills are gonna go up in winter time.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
there's gonna be other expenses that, if they're in that low to moderate range, is there something we can do to help them get through that wintertime period, you know? It would be, they'd have to apply and fit into that category, you know. Iowa Electric or Alliant or whoever, they've got that program, so.
And they're governed, I believe, the utility companies are, there's a certain time period they cannot shut off.
Right,
Yeah.
But then when the time comes, it's like, here's your slip.
yeah. But we're looking into whether or not we can use that LMI money for that.
And I'm looking at other ways to create some sort of hardship fund. Obviously, the details are important on that. I didn't feel comfortable bringing that forward tonight because I didn't want to get ideas out there that were wrong. I want to have the details a little bit more together.
We wanna make sure we do it right.
Yeah, I would hope and wish that you would, what's the word, vet them carefully so they're not
Right.
just taking advantage of the
Sure.
system, so.
Yeah.
Well, and that's where they'd have to apply, and
Yeah.
you'd have
Yeah.
to go through the
Okay.
process.
It would be a process.
All right, thank you.
Is there additional public comments? What would the council like to do with the proposed, discussion topics?
If it's agreeable, I'll start working on implementing this actually into ordinance language with the city attorney and bring that back for further discussion. If you have other ideas between now and then,
Sure.
I can try to get that implemented as well, but
Well, and I do agree with Nancy that I would like to see that 24 hours for the door posting, having that extended out a little bit.
You mean door posting to shut off?
The shut off, right,
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
cause the door
24
posting is
Well, 24 hours after the door posting.
posted, okay.
before they're shut off, you want it 48?
48.
48 or even 60, or,
Okay.
or 72. Let's go 3 days. That way it should give them plenty of time, hopefully, that in 3 days, once they'll look at their front door and, you know, if they're working, they may have to take time off, or unless we have some other avenue of them making payment, but
Okay,
let's give them 3 days.
okay. I'm not opposed, I'm just thinking if, and this can already happen, but if you if the days fall correctly and your third day is Saturday, it now becomes 5 days because we don't shut off till Monday. But,
Well,
um,
the thing,
If it's 24 hours, it could end up on Saturday.
it could already happen, it's just,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
odds of it happening are less because we don't, I mean, it's just random when the bills come in, so.
right, but you know, the thing that I guess kinda, one of the reasons I brought this up was, I have a tenant who didn't pay the $25, but he paid everything else, and they were gonna shut off his water, and he's got a little baby. And I've got a problem with that. You know, there's a lot of people with little kids that I wanna make sure they've got every opportunity to get this thing paid. And I'm not so sure that maybe we shouldn't even set up some type of a payment plan at some point too. If all of a sudden they get a water bill they weren't expecting, we can work with them on getting that paid. You know, but doesn't affect their next bill, it's just that one bill if it's large enough.
Right.
Especially now that families of 4 and so forth, their water bills are going up. Let's make sure we can work with everybody.
Okay.
So I guess I don't see where we would need a motion to take this information, drafted in some type of final format, and bring it back to us.
Yep.
Okay.
One thing to give consideration then as it moves forward is, it would be nice to get some type of tracking, if this is alleviating some of these concerns that like you have, Rich, or does it compound something else. Cause we may just chase a problem around a corner and not alleviate it at all.
I think we should definitely track our numbers of people getting the fee and the doorpost, and, I mean, at least see what it does. I'm not saying just switch it back 'cause it doesn't work, but at least have some discussion about it.
Yeah, I don't know, I mean, basically what the problem I see coming out of this is it may be a lower dollar amount of fines. I mean, I don't know where you're going with the problems. You know, I'm looking at this as a positive, not a negative, so.
7.5, resolution to hire and set wages for wastewater operator.
I think at the time of my memo, I didn't know if she was gonna accept. I can excitedly say she did. So,
Okay.
Good.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Kay, second by Rich, to move forward with the individual's hiring and setting of wage for wastewater operator. Public comment? This item must have chased everybody out of the room.
Wasn't me.
I don't know, they all left around there.
Everybody's sitting around
So,
you. Bedtime, that's why.
does the council need any further discussion? Motion's on the floor in front of you. All those in favor signify by, it's a roll vote.
It's a roll vote.
Because I even had this
Yes.
one circled.
Stout,
Yes.
Capron,
Yes.
Crump,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
This next one's a roll vote too, Beth. 7.6, resolution to set wages for parks and recreation assistant directors.
So moved.
Second?
Motion by Rich, second by Alan. Public comments? Take it away, Beth.
Crump,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Zoma,
Yes.
Stout,
Yes.
Capron,
Yes.
7.7, resolution to set wages for utility billing clerk.
What's the current wage?
$14.14 per hour.
Thank you.
So it's a 39-cent rate.
39 cents, and it's what was scheduled for July, so it'd just be moving it up a few months.
And why are we bumping it up to this time instead of July?
She's had experienced some, I think, additional stress. I mean, she was compensated back when we were going through the transition with city clerk and deputy city clerk, but I think since then, and as well with the change in utility rate structure, just a lot of stress with people coming in, taking the blame out on her. And I can hear most of those conversations when I'm in my office, and you know, the really bad ones, either Beth or I will come out and help with, but she takes some, I mean, some of them are, you know, we couldn't come out for all of the ones that are just tough, and I think that does take a toll on her, and that's kind of what she brought as the concern to me was it's just difficult for her to take that all day. So I was sympathetic to it. I don't like it because the whole reason I wanted to set up the wage scale system was to get everybody on the same page, one time annually adjust wages and go from there. So this is not something I want to do regularly, but I was sympathetic to it, and I guess that's all there
I'm
is to it.
sympathetic too. I just,
So
we
is this
make
gonna,
an exception for her situation. Are we gonna make exceptions in other situations too?
You
Well-
certainly opened the door.
oh, yeah.
And if we do this, I'm going to assume no increase until July 1st of 2021.
That's what I was
Correct.
gonna ask.
Correct.
So we're talking about, it's February, March, April, May,
June.
June, 4 months early.
So of the, what'd you say, 39 cents?
Mm-hmm.
It's got about $260 more for 4 months.
25 cents of that is considered, cost of living.
That's correct.
So it's 14 cent, an hour merit raise.
I don't think it's the money, I think it's the
The
president.
timing and, yeah.
I do understand why. I mean, I get that.
Oh, I do too.
I feel for her.
Well, you know, the second whereas identifies reasons for the individual's request. As I had asked Jacob prior to tonight's meeting, those reasons go away. They no longer become an issue because of the increase in wage, or do they still exist?
Well, it's not gonna solve her, the situation where she's getting a lot of grief.
And the
Is there
question is,
anything we can do as far as alleviating that some?
yeah,
Well, I guess I'm a little troubled,
Not monetarily, but I'm just saying,
With
is there
the-
some way we can help her out that way?
the rude behavior by customers. If it's as rude as I'm going with it in my mind, that needs to be squashed. No employee should be subject to that.
Maybe we can,
And if it means, I'm sorry, Jacob or Beth, you have the hierarchy within City Hall. You should be down the hallway attempting to resolve that, if it, 100% of the time. Some way we gotta make that rude behavior go away.
well, and let me ask you this, because I haven't heard these conversations. Is there a theme to that conversation? You know, is it a theme based off of some misconception of the $15 charge that somebody posted one time was going to the police station, which was a falsehood? But if
Triggered a
that's
lot.
if that's the case, then that's on us for not doing the job of making sure everybody knew in advance what was going on, as opposed to waiting and reacting. We did not do the job on the front end. But now that we're through that process and we have hopefully educated people what that $15 is for, has this process slowed down on the people coming in and complaining?
Not necessarily. Because
So,
people
but
don't
but are
listen
they
or
now, are
read.
they now changing the theme of the complaints?
No.
Or is it still the same complaint?
It's still the same complaint. A lot of it is just the not treating Linda like a human being. And if I go out there, they don't treat me like a human being either. I am just the buffer to get them off of Linda mainly, so.
Okay.
I mean,
Well,
there's it's gonna
ju-
be rough, it's just the way it is.
But just trying to get to what is the true complaint, if it's about that $15, if it's, do we need to keep hammering it, put it in the paper, put it in, on Facebook again, on the website, so that they can see it? Do we need to send out a mailer to everybody, so that they receive it in the mail? This is what the water bill, step by step. At least maybe if we do some of that, could it maybe lessen that?
Well, some of it is the shut-offs. I mean,
Which
you
is,
have
that's
lot
a whole
of the
different
same-
story.
Right,
Yeah.
but they'll come in and scream, I mean, there's a lot of screaming that happens, and yelling, and things that shouldn't be said when
So-
you have the shut-off, but I mean,
Well, hopefully
the bills.
if we adopt this new policy, that'll help with alleviate some of that.
Yeah.
Hopefully, yeah.
So,
Well, and sad to say, any employee could feel the same way. About stress, about unappreciative clients.
I feel for her,
Yeah, I do
Um,
too.
but I guess at this stage, I'm kind of inclined to say, let's keep it on the same schedule.
Okay.
And hopefully, if we get some of this stuff in place, her stress level will go down as we work through it.
Has anything been said to her about the possible raise?
She came to me
She
and
came and
requested it,
requested it.
and I told her this is what I would bring to the council as the best thing that I thought, I thought this was the best that possibility, and I did not guarantee that, I said.
The only thing
I
that bothers me about this whole thing.
Explained to her that I did not like even bringing it to you guys because I wanted to keep it on the
Yeah.
schedule, but
The only thing that bothers me about this is she's gonna get a sense that, we don't care, and it has nothing to do with that, you know what I'm saying? I mean, if I was in her shoes and I'm trying to put myself there, and everybody just said, nah, we'll just make you wait till July, it's not gonna feel good, but, I totally understand what you're saying there,
Well-
Rich, I do. This is another one of those things Rod said, we're between a rock and a hard place on this one.
Well, the thing that, is, I know it says that she would take it until 2022 or 2021, July 1st of 2021, but is she at some point then gonna say, well, I haven't had a raise in a year,
right.
I wanna do this, Or
Yeah.
do we give her a partial raise now and then, finish it off in July 1st at the normal time and say you're back on schedule? That's a possibility too. There's nothing that says we gotta do the full amount right now.
Yeah.
To me, the rude behavior, regardless of what the council does on this, agenda, the rude behavior has to be, resolved. You cannot continue to subject your employees to that. So maybe we need to come up with something else in here in the future.
Are this,
Be
is this
addressing
behavior
this.
I will,
repetitive?
I will
Yeah.
work on some ideas to get this resolved.
Is this rude behavior repetitive? In other words, does a person come in more than once and do the same thing week after week or month after month?
Sometimes we
Some
have
of them do?
repeat people.
Would there be a possibility of just saying, you can't come in here anymore? You're banned from coming to
It
City
takes a
Hall?
lot, it
The
takes
part
a
is say
lot
they're
to
not gonna,
have
they're not
somebody
gonna pay it.
Well, that, and then that limits their options for payment. I mean, they
Yeah.
can use the Dropbox, but,
Well,
Well, another,
you can yell at the Dropbox.
I didn't wanna, I brought this up so we can have, remind us to have further discussion in the
Mhm.
future.
Yeah.
We're getting somewhat off of,
Off the top.
track
Yeah.
of the agenda item. So, sitting here, I have a very good understanding, I think, where Rich is. But to do this right, at this point, I'm gonna request a motion from council on agenda item 7.7. Again, I'm going to request a motion on agenda item 7.7. Being Since I'm not hearing a motion, I'm gonna say this dies for lack of a motion. So be it. 7.8, setting a date for budget work session. This date needs to, if it's gonna be a single date, it needs to be on an evening where we have ample time to review the budget in its entirety.
I was thinking in my mind, someday next week. I don't see any particular day that's better or worse for me. Our deadline, I'm trying to remember,
Next
our
Friday.
deadline is next Friday, I think, to get, so we have another public hearing for the budget, and it's gotta be to the newspaper on Friday. So, earlier in the week's probably better.
A week from tonight.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Wednesday will be Lent stuff for some people.
I'm good anytime, so it makes no difference to me.
Next Monday works.
I was just gonna say, you know, if we go with Monday, we could have Tuesday a carryover if we don't get through it.
Yeah.
Good
No.
point.
We'd have Thursday for carryover, cause if we don't get through it, you gotta post it.
I thought we could post for a Monday, Tuesday, and then,
We could post for Tuesday and cancel it, but
Okay.
you're right, if we waited until after Monday to post, we would have to
yeah,
wait
I
till
was
Thursday.
looking to make it a 2-day session up front, Rich.
Okay.
Do you want me to post for Monday and Tuesday automatically, and hopefully we'll get done Monday night?
So it's the
Second, third.
second, and third.
Yep.
Okay. 6 o'clock?
Take it that was in the form of a motion, Rich?
So make it.
Motion by Rich, second by Galen, to, set next week, Monday and Tuesday, March 2nd and 3rd, for budget review work session.
So am I still on the council as of the 1st of March, or is it,
Until the election.
Yeah.
okay, until the election? I'll be here then. I just wanted to make sure before I walk in and make myself look like it.
All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. 7.9, beer and liquor license. Item A, renewal of Class C beer permit with Sunday sale privileges, Tapkins Convenience Plus.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Rich, second by Kay. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Item A carries unanimously. 7.9, item B, renewal of Class C liquor license with outdoor service and Sunday sales privileges, La Hacienda Mexican Restaurant.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Kay, second by Rich. To approve Class C liquor license for La Hacienda. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Item B carries unanimously. 7.10, review and approval of current bills.
I'll make the motion to approve.
I will second.
I do have a question, however. Item 64877, Pearl Farms, a dual lift trailer for 2,850. Can I inquire?
64877?
Yeah,
Mhm.
Pearl Farms. What is that for?
I believe, I believe that's a trailer that Greg bought to look at establishing a brine mix to try to do a pre-treatment. It was a used trailer. So
So does he already have the rest of the stuff that he would need to do that?
I believe it would just, from my understanding, be pulled behind one of the dump trucks.
So, is there any other use for this trailer? Or is it just
To my
solely for,
my knowledge right now, no. I mean, it could be. It's a sprayer type trailer, so it's got like arms and maybe other things like a. I mean, I'm just thinking out of the box right now. I don't know. I have not even seen it, but theoretically, maybe like a weed killer or something on a. But that the intention for it was just the brine.
well, I just didn't know if we didn't have another trailer within the city that we could have used instead of buying another trailer, or?
To my knowledge, the city does not own a trailer like this. A tank trailer. It's like a tank.
The tank's already there?
Yes,
Yes.
it's one that I'm thinking I've seen, Rich. It's very similar, but a lot more scaled down version than you would see county or DOT pulling, to treat the roads. But this is that activation liquid that we had been.
The brine.
Brine.
Previous testing.
But
But it's not the same as the brine, I think that the county and states use, but it's more of an activation liquid that you introduce with the salt.
Probably, but don't they, Pearl Farms has vegetables and, so they probably were using it to spray chemicals, which is not anything I'm against necessarily, but sometimes chemicals are not good on equipment depending on, so what's the condition of the equipment?
I think you're thinking of Kroll Farms. Are you thinking of Kroll Farms, not by Mount Vernon?
Yeah,
This is Pearl
is-
Farms.
This is Pearl.
Oh, this is
Pearl.
something different.
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
I
thank you.
can't remember what they were using it for. I know I asked Greg what were they, putting through it. All I can remember is it seemed to make sense for what we were using. I don't remember what they were using it for.
Do you know how many gallon this is?
I don't off the top of my head.
I don't remember either, Galen.
So are they gonna have one of the Class A drivers drive it?
I think it would be Class A because of it being a trailer, and
Up to so many pounds?
I think it would be Class A, and there's 2 Class A drivers in the street department right now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me, what are Pearl Farms then? What kind of an operation do they have?
I have
Again,
no
I'm
idea.
going for the chemicals, cause I know it's really hard on equipment.
If it's a farm sprayer, chances are it's probably made mostly of plastic. A lot of these nowadays, they have a pump, and I'm not sure what that pump would be for the brine, but generally speaking, everything's going through plastic, including the little spray nozzles and everything else that they use, so there wouldn't be much to worry about as far as it being broken down, other than maybe some seals that they may have to replace, or some metal parts that they may be used in that system. I don't know, I haven't seen it either, so.
Well, I never walked around it, I just seen it from a distance, and to me, from that distance, it looked like it was in very, very good shape.
Oh, okay.
Now, the way they did it when I was down there, it was gravity feed. They had a setup with a tank that was in one of the toners, and it just had a PVC pipe across the back with holes in it, and an electric switch that you could operate in the cab. And that was gravity feed, and it left just as the same as what was out there, as what the state puts down. So, I don't know what happened to that tank and that setup, but it was like a 250 gallon tank.
This could be right around there, I don't know, maybe a 500 gallon.
It filled up the back of the tonner, that 250 gallon. And you're at 1,600 or 2,000 pounds with 250 gallons.
So it's really not gonna cost much more to set this up
I believe
and have
it's-
it operational.
They come in the door ready to go.
Okay.
Where are they getting their chemical?
It's the same chemical that they've been applying this winter. Don't quote me, but it's my understanding that it's to use this activation, to
Yeah.
apply the activation agent we've already been using.
Well, didn't they pay somebody to apply it before?
No, I believe the
So
city was doing it.
I think, I think there's a chemical that's applied to our salt. It's mixed in with it. And that just creates, allows it to work at a lower temperature and,
Calcium chloride.
but, I think this is for, maybe it's not brine, but some sort of similar thing to pre-treat the streets. I know he was, in the discussion, he looked at other communities that were doing that. The concern with brine is that it can wear down the life of your road if you apply too much. But, you know, and discussions of also needing to improve snow removal. I think it was Mount Vernon that he had talked to, and they pre-treat all their main thoroughfares, and it just helps when you come through with the plow, pull right up, so.
Any further discussion with the bills? Well, I have written down, we have a motion by Rich and second by Alan to pay the bills as submitted. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carries unanimously. 8.0, City Administrator's Report.
Last week, met with property owners and our architect again on the downtown revitalization grant. Still have a couple to meet with, but the majority of those are done. Still have to work with ECOG on some of the final steps with getting the grant submitted, but we're on track to meet that deadline. Right, as of now, it's April, or did it officially get
They've
pushed
actually
back?
moved it to July 31st, the deadline,
July-
so you have
so
a few more months.
The state moved it back, so that wasn't on us. I think we're ready for April, but we'll obviously, you know, we'll take all the time we can to make sure that the application is strong as possible. Also met with Dan and Snyder Associates last week on the Flow EQ, storage tanks at the plant to help with the infiltration and when we get a heavy rain. They're gonna continue working on that. I guess the short summary, kind of where we came away at that time anyway, was looking at the cost of the different size tanks. They won't warranty a tank bigger than 3 million gallons because they're prefabricated and they just don't, I guess, trust them the same way on a smaller size. So if we want more than that, we're gonna have to do more than one tank. I mean, we could choose, but I guess I don't think that's a good option to do a larger tank. One thing we looked at to make sure we're not overspending was, we discussed doing the piping for both tanks, but only doing one tank originally, because the groundwork's, I guess I don't wanna say the majority of the cost, but, digging that up is gonna be a pretty big expense, so if we at least have the pipe work ready for that second tank, we can see how the first one does, and then if we're ready to pull, decide to go with the second one, it'll be ready to go, and the cost should be a lot less on the second one. That's kinda where we are. Our second meeting on the proposed projects for the fire station expansion and police station, rehabilitation, I guess, new facility, is Wednesday, the 26th, at 6 o'clock, at the library. Certainly encourage everyone that's still here to let people know that's happening, and if they have questions, that's the best place to get them answered. The special election is shortly after that, March 3rd. That will have the ballot question about those projects as well as the council vacancy, and Galen's our only candidate, so I feel pretty confidently we'll be seeing more of him.
Congratulations.
There could be write-ins yet.
So I think that's all I've got unless there's
We'll
questions.
take what we can get,
I do
Galen.
have questions,
Sure.
a couple questions, actually.
Sure.
So how many applications do we have for the downtown grant?
We have 22 participating buildings right now.
Okay.
That's good.
I mean, the people who have done it before, we always expect people to drop out towards the end when we actually say you owe this money to keep moving forward. So far, everybody seems really optimistic, which may force us to a point where we have to choose some to include in this round and choose some for a second round. And we just have to make that decision on what's the best, most competitive application. And usually that's the compactness of the projects, buildings that are next to each other, so you get that visual difference, and that's probably what we'll be looking at.
Okay. Next question, what was the follow-up to the insurance claim?
Okay. We followed up the next day with insurance, Jackie Schneider. Realized that an official claim had not been submitted. The information had been provided to EMC, but it was not submitted correctly. We got that submitted that day. They already had the information, so they started that investigation. Last I remember, I spoke again with the claims agent, which is who I contacted last fall. And he was supposed to be speaking with Mr. Simonson about the claim. And to the best of my knowledge, I have not heard back, which I need to follow up on.
So we probably need to review our process then for filing the claim, so something doesn't hang out there.
We need to make sure
and
those are
get-
done correctly.
So, might wanna get with Jackie and
Yep.
come up with a procedure for that.
So do you believe the error was on our end in filing or submitting of the claim? Or the error was on the insurance company?
The error was
Not-
on our end,
Okay.
but the only thing I'll add is that I think it could have been pointed out to us then. It could have been an easy, this isn't the correct path,
A little miscommunication,
but the error was on our end.
But I think we need to set up a procedure with Jackie on filing claims so that in the future, we don't have something occur like what just did. And then my final question is, where do we stand with the Main Street encroachment building?
Okay. What's today?
The-
Towards the end of February. So, we had sent out notices December 10th. That was the first notice that there was we defined it as a nuisance. The encroachment that had to be corrected. Those notices were sent out. We didn't receive anything back in terms of a response. Pretty much all the deadlines laid out in that first notice passed. We should have been a little bit more prompt, in getting additional action right away, but we did get a second follow-up notice basically saying you've given up all your rights to, protest this or anything, but giving a second deadline, I think it was the end of February, that it had to be corrected, otherwise we were gonna pursue, further, I think the plan is to, cite a municipal infraction, like March 1, and then we can take it from there.
So should we put this on the agenda for our first meeting in March then, to have a discussion about it?
I will follow up with the city attorney and see what the best course of action, I mean, can definitely put it on the agenda, but, I wanna make sure we have their
Well,
recommendation.
At least to get us up to speed on where everything stands, what the responses have been, and
Sure.
what our next steps are going to be.
And, yeah, yes, I will put it on the next agenda. So, there has been some informal communication, that there's some understanding that we actually had sold that property to the north, which we have not. I mean, we discussed it, but, so I think there's some serious confusion, and I guess I don't know, I think our letters have been clear and, but.
Okay.
I do know the two adjacent parties are working through their disagreements on their own.
Well, those are civil,
Yes,
but with the encroachment onto the city's property, that's our baby.
but it's
So-
also the city's ordinance that applies to the adjacent property.
Right. But I would like to, at least, if his deadline is the end of February, I don't wanna wait until the end of March to start coming up with a plan of action. I wanna be on top of this moving forward.
Okay.
Does anybody else have other questions for Jacob?
I wanna go back to that deal with Simonson. Is that tree on city property then?
I haven't determined that, I guess I still think that's where, the insurance needs to make that determination. So I will follow up with them.
I drove by
tomorrow
it and there's a light pole right in the middle of the alley where the alley used to be, and then the tree is not far from that light pole.
Well, and it's quite possible a portion of that tree's on city property and a portion's on somebody else's property. I mean, it's kinda in that iffy range,
Yeah.
but I don't know of anybody who's gonna probably pay $2,000 or $1,000 to have it surveyed for a $286 or $236 claim.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no. I would agree.
Well, I was just wondering about,
But-
like you said, limbs falling.
But that's my concern is if that limb fell, is it a
Right.
diseased tree or damaged tree that we need,
Sure.
we need to find out for sure if we need to take it down or not.
Nothing additional. 9.0, mayor and council reports. 9.1, council reports on boards and commissions.
I missed the library meeting, but I will tell you they're having a Better Angels documentary on March 5th that everybody should go to.
I've met with the senior citizens meal program. I'm expanding my garden, my farm out there by my place. We're gonna be, donating vegetables out of there. My wife liked it so well, she came along with me, she's volunteering to help them out a little bit. I discussed a little bit about how they, get their finances and how things work with them, and, I'll do what I can to kinda help them out. I'd also contacted the Jets, administrator, and, she hasn't gotten back to me yet. I'm gonna probably follow up this week and see what I can do, see if I can get ahold of her again.
Anybody else? The Old Dubuque Road Highway 151 intersection committee met on February 13th. Representatives from the city, the county, and the Iowa DOT were present. They basically have set some, I'll refer to them as immediate milestones. One being within 3 months, they want a decision regarding closure and capacity. Not, it will be closed, but when will that occur? When will the closure be targeted, a date for that? A second milestone that was set is a 6-month milestone, where they're looking for funding mechanisms that would be through the state and the DOT for assistance with the Old Dubuque Road extension and I guess the outliers of the highway, you know, maybe turning lanes, removal or put in, and, you know, so there's a huge planning process that now has to occur. That committee is even given consideration to a 20-year plan that we will attempt to lay some type of groundwork or more than just an idea for further up the road of Highway 151 to the north. Those funding mechanisms that I had mentioned, there's basically 2 classes available. One of those classes does branch off into multiple mechanisms. So money can be increased for allocation if businesses are going to commit to moving in along that frontage road or extension of Old Dubuque Road. So it can really be significant money based on what those types of businesses are. And as you're aware, when it comes to government, there are restrictions. The DOT is a government-based entity. But that's just a quick snapshot of what went on at the meeting. It was a 3-hour meeting, which I really wasn't expecting, but it is what it is. It's significant, and the time it takes is the time it takes. The next meeting, I believe, is March 12th, again.
Where do you guys have these meetings at? Where do you guys have them? Just
We met, the first meeting, and the second meeting is scheduled at the the county shop.
okay. When it gets a little further along, will you guys extend out, you know, invitations to, you know, business community and, you know, a variety?
As we talked in our meeting here, when we somewhat set that structure, we are inviting in a couple additional people that will play heavily into that Old Dubuque Road extension, the planning side of that. They say they are from the local area, that they can very much assist with advancing this. But yes, to answer that question, Jeff, that at some point I would expect others to be sitting at this table as we go deeper into the planning stages.
Great.
Chief Hoyt was also present, as well as Cody Schaefer. Chief, is there anything you would like to add to that?
No, it was a long meeting, but we hammered a lot of stuff out, and I think are heading in a direction, so.
Well, thanks to both of you guys for being there and putting in the time.
You're welcome. One other thing I guess I have from a mayor's report, and this is more public awareness. Alliant Energy is conducting a customer transition to their new constructed substation. They will be notifying customers affected by this, but just to note for public awareness that these outages will occur on Wednesday, February 26th, and Thursday, February 27th, 8 AM to 9 AM in the morning. The duration of the outage could be anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes at numerous locations throughout the city. And again, they are contacting those that will be affected to plan however you can for these outages.
Yeah, I already got my phone call.
So did I.
Received one, but I just thought it would be a good faith effort on the city to re-notify the residents, because we know they all watch these meeting proceedings.
Tongue in cheek, right?
That's all I have from a mayor's report. So again, if there's nothing further, we'll move 10.0, public with business with the council on items not on the agenda.
Tom Durgan, property owner downtown. I checked my schedule, I'm good for Monday and Tuesday, if that works for you guys. We all know, this is where some people are gonna hate me, we all know how I have been many times pushing fire department, police department, swimming pool, and LCC. And I've heard a lot of that tonight, about the repairs we need. I heard stuff about the insurance and about a bunch of other stuff. And if I'm not mistaken, there's a $2.9 million bond issue coming up. And then Jacob's talking about the revitalization, which I'm assuming is the same as the facade program of which it started. So I'm assuming the city is still gonna go ahead and spend $250,000 towards people's buildings downtown.
Assuming we get the grant, I think that's the plan.
And once again, where was that money coming from?
It most likely has to be borrowed.
Okay.
Our debt levy is
And-
very healthy right now.
And I know I've had a conversation with Rod and I've had a conversation with you, and like I've said, I might be a little bit more acceptable of this. But even talking to people from the state, there's no accountability. It's like, here's your money. Tell you what you did, here's your money. That's the story I always get from everybody I've talked to. And which kinda goes into the, what'd you call that, the building downtown that's encroaching. You know, I know there's, I don't know what, I think there's sidewalk codes and some other stuff here, but I'm gonna use that for an example because it seems to me like something got out of hand with the city and the neighboring property owners that I'm seeing is gonna happen the same with the buildings. Because here again, the accountability. Now, I don't know if anybody from the city ever checked if it was surveyed, if they ever checked these marks, if they ever did anything. Who watches this stuff? Who watches that property down here? Who's gonna watch where this money is gonna go? Who's gonna make sure it's, you know, and we all know I'm against codes, I've made that very clear. However, there is a time where when you're spending taxpayers' money, you better know what's being spent on and how it's being spent. And who's gonna be watching this? Cause I've seen too much shoddy work. And I know I don't do it.
There's a lot of layers of oversight for this grant program.
And I've heard that many times, but the
It's-
bottom line.
It's ultimately federal money. They do not wanna see it get wasted. A lot of regulations. That's why we're hiring a grant administrator, grant writer. They're supposed to watch all those details, make sure that it's
And
spent
how much does
according to
that
plan.
cost? And where does that money come from?
It's part of the project. The grant writing is free. So
Okay.
if we don't get the grant, we pay them nothing. If we get the grant, we do owe them money to administer the grant, but it can be paid out of grant funds.
Okay, so how, like I said, and I've heard that, but I'm just trying to clarify, cause I've asked this many times, you know, and like I said, all I've heard is pretty much you turn in what you've done, you turn in the receipts, and here's your money. And I don't know what the time frame is, you know, Derek knows way more about this stuff than I do, not trying to throw you on the bus or anything. But, and which, I kind of wonder, you know, is that something that Derek, is that something that Derek, no, I should ask you guys, but is that something that Derek does or is this a completely different person that writes the grants?
The grant writer is somebody on EasyCog's staff.
Okay.
Derek is assisting with me to help move things forward, but we'll obviously have our eyes on it. We don't want to waste our money either.
Well, I
Property
don't
owners,
want
property
you to
owners,
waste the money.
property owners have their money in it too, so they don't want to see things get wasted.
But I've seen property owners stick their money in the buildings and it's, you know, it's just, to me, it's futile. You might as well, you know, makeup does a lot. You know, you can make anything ugly look beautiful if you hide everything behind it, but that's my concern. It's like, I go to extremes to make things the best that I can. I see something, I dig to the back of that to find that problem and work everything back out to where it's
I
right.
cannot guarantee it's to the Tom Durgan standard, but
I'm very anal about things, but, you know, it should be right at a minimum, you know? So, so, on that other property, what is the protocol for that? How did that get out of control? Is there someone that oversees, and
to try to keep this very simple, our current building permit process requires the property owner who's applying for the permit to take responsibility for locating their property lines. We do not verify that.
Yep, I understand. I'm smiling because I remember the very first meeting about all this.
So once we,
and I knew what was gonna happen.
once we had concern arise that had been encroached upon, then we went to establish where they were, and then we determined it had been encroached. The vast majority of our permits do not deal with downtown buildings where there's zero setback.
Yeah.
So in
Which
most
makes it very tough.
situations, if somebody does not locate their property line right, they may be off and may not be correct, but they're still 25 feet from the next building. In this case, that didn't happen, so it's a little bit more severe. But
Okay, I asked that because I was told, and here again, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't have a problem with that, correct me if I'm wrong, but I was told that there was someone from the city that, and this was a residential one too, that someone was gonna build, and they had to have someone from the city come and check this survey.
we check the setbacks
Okay.
before it's built.
You don't check this, so
they're
you're
supposed to-
taking their word,
They're
right?
we take their word on the
Yeah.
property lines, but we check the setbacks.
Okay. All right.
And
Okay.
in this case, there's zero setbacks, so
Yeah.
they can build up to their property line.
Just one real quick thing, and I'll try to get out of the Tommy Hater Club here, but Rich, I had kind of touched on that, and I wanted to suggest that was the mailing of an
Water
explanation.
Water bill.
Like I said, that was the best because when I first seen that, I'm like, oh, you know, I thought the same thing. But when I understood it, and I think that's a lot of the problem is the people don't understand it. Now, mailing it, and I think now you do the social media because I don't do that. See, I come in on Mondays and I get my little piece of paper and they usually have it ready for me because I don't do the computer stuff. I don't do the social media, so I have to rely on this. Is there any other way that you can post them at the library or post them at or do you? Maybe you do, I don't know. Other than just the front door of City Hall, is there any other way of posting?
The agendas or
What's
what?
that?
The agendas or what?
Yeah, the agendas, yep.
We don't currently post them at those other buildings, no.
Okay. I just, and it kind of goes along with the notifying the people of but I think it needs to be explained. Because there's a lot of people, and I've had people tell me that they get mixed emotion, and I tried to explain it to them how I could, because, I understand it, but, so yeah, and on that thing in there, just real quick, is I've been in there a couple times, and it was about a year ago, I stayed in that room over there because someone was getting belligerent. And quite frankly, I wasn't leaving till it was over, and then I just walked out. Because I don't think there's a man in this room that's gonna sit there if something got escalated and walk away and let someone take the abuse. I know I'm not gonna. especially when you got a woman behind a window that they can just have a free-for-all with. You know, and that goes for Beth and Ginger and any of them, you know, it's just, and coincidentally, every time I go in there on a Monday, there's an officer there. Just saying. Monday, okay.
Things that make you go,
Yeah.
But there is nothing that says we can't post the agenda at other locations. So maybe it would be a good idea to put it at the library, at the LCC. I know in the school scenario, we always posted it at Strawberry Hill, at the middle school, at the high school, at the administrative offices, plus faxed it to the newspaper and anybody else who wanted it. Now, don't need to fax it, probably could just email it to them and they could print it off and post it.
I don't have a problem walking up there and getting it, it's not that far and I enjoy the walk, so. I'm just saying, for people there are people like me that are out there that don't do so. I got a stupid phone, okay, I've said that many times, the phone is only as smart as the operator, that's not very good.
I was gonna say, by the looks of that phone, it looks like you could get on the internet.
I can hardly even get my email.
Okay,
A lot of times I call my wife to figure out how to.
any
do
other
this.
public with, matters not on the agenda? 11.0, annual performance evaluation of city administrator and employee agreement review.
I'll make a motion to enter into closed session for Iowa State Code Section 21.5I.
Second.
Motion by Rich, second by Galen to enter into closed session.
You know, you guys aren't stuck between a rock and a hard place tonight. You guys are stuck between moon and Mars. A lot of
Yes.
stuff, I wouldn't wanna be in your shoes tonight.
Al?
Zumbo.
yes,
Was that a yes, yes?
yes, yes.
You voting yes to go into closed session?
What's that?
Voting yes to go into closed session?
I'm voting yes. Yeah.
Stout?
Yes.